mic. Can you hear me? You can hear me? I'm Denise Pemberton. I don't know why.
I think it's because you probably clicked on the link and deleted your most recent email.
Yes.
I sat and logged in so that I wrote out.
Okay.
It's all right. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you, and Mike just tried to call me, but I couldn't answer my phone. I think because I have these headphones on. I was like, I don't know how to answer the phone. Hi, Ralph. Well, Ralph is Margaret, so if I'm Denise, maybe that's okay. But good to know that you're alive.
Let's go ahead and call the first Budget Committee meeting together, or to order, May 13th, 2021. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we have a couple people in the gallery. Lindsay Park, Ralph Branson, Melanie Wagner. Are we expecting anybody else?
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Are we expecting them soon?
That is to be
Jody gonna make it?
Oh,
Yes, she was.
Okay, let's do this. Let's
Jody Bever, everyone.
call out the meeting to, or
There she
call
is.
the meeting to order. Let's do a roll call, and then we can officially get into here.
Chair Wheeler,
Here,
Vice Chair Hill,
here,
Director Shibahara, Director Johnston,
here.
Director Berman,
Jody Bever, can you hear us?
I can hear you here.
Thank you. Melanie Wagner,
Here.
Lindsay Park,
Here.
Ralph Branson.
It's in here.
That's a here.
and Kendra Perkins.
Kendra Perkins.
Okay. As we do every year, we're going to elect a presiding officer for the 2021-2022 budget process. I will take nominations, and then we will vote on that person or persons.
I would like to nominate Lindsay Park as the presiding officer.
Do you need a second?
Actually, we just wait for all nominations and then vote.
Is there any other nominations we'd like to have for presiding officer? I'm not seeing any hands raised up. Oh, Lindsay Park, go ahead. Okay. I'm not seeing other nominations at this point in time. Let's take a roll call vote on everybody that,
What's your doing? Yeah.
what's that?
Yeah. Just take a vote.
We'll take a vote on electing Lindsay as the presiding officer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chair Wheeler,
Aye.
Vice Chair Riddell,
Aye. Jody Bever,
Aye.
Melanie Wagner,
Yes.
is that a yes vote for Lindsay as a presiding officer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ralph Brandt?
Yes.
Yep, I see a yes from Mr. Branson as well. And Lindsay, you don't get to vote.
Motion carries. All right, we'll get this sound figured out here real quick. Lindsay? Oh, we need to elect a alternate presiding officer, but I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and you can control that, since you are the newly elected presiding officer.
Okay, I'm trying my best in our virtual environment. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I think what next on the agenda is electing an alternate presiding officer? Any nominees out there?
I'll nominate Jody Bever.
Oh, that was very well timed, Melanie Wagner.
Do I have a second out there?
I'll second that.
And what do we do next? How do we vote?
Ask if there's any other nominations.
Any other nominations out there?
Nope.
Perfect.
So then we just do a vote.
That would be great. Do we raise hands? Do we do the roll call again?
Just raise your hands.
I think we can do a raise of hands this time. We've got everybody either in person or on video. So everybody in favor of Jody Bever being the alternate presiding officer, raise your right hand. Or raise that hand. See a lot of hands.
Congratulations, Jody.
Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Denise doesn't have a mic, so she's kind of hard to hear, so we're going to relay any information she says.
Thank you. That was helpful. Okay, what is next on the agenda? What's your message? I'm excited. That's what we're here for.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome officially to our budget committee. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that these are very trying times, and actually, Melanie, if I could get you to mute, I think that would help us with. Perfect. There you go. Thank you very much. Anyways, welcome to the team. It is so great to see you all again as we have the opportunity to talk about how we did both this current year from a fiscal perspective and how we prepare for next. I will tell you that this school year has been, without a doubt, one of the toughest years for our community and for our school district. However, I'm very proud of what our school district has done to accomplish many benchmarks throughout the process, up to and including high levels of student learning, social and emotional supports for our students and our community, as well as we had opportunities to become first responders this year as we evacuated our entire school district to a wildfire, as we had to be creative and constructive in how we offered education during a ice storm that impacted school for over a week, and had a couple of catastrophic events where we lost some of our teammates through the process. And so it's been a very challenging year for us, and I'm very proud of what our district has accomplished because we built a solid plan. And that solid plan began really last summer as we had the opportunity to work closely with our employees and our parents, and we made adjustments throughout the school year to meet the needs of all involved in the Estacada School District. Part of the reason, I believe, for this success was because of our commitment to our strategic plan. And I know several of you who are also serving on the budget committee also were key members of the development of that strategic plan. And while most organizations that I had the opportunity to observe throughout this pandemic drifted in the wind, our school district organization was able to remain anchored to its core mission, vision, and values, allowing us to through a large part of this pandemic. The strategic plan also allowed us to be proactive and manage our finances accordingly in efforts to support our strategic plan and execute our comprehensive distance learning, our hybrid, and our reopening models. We did so by being proactive and knowing what we wanted our outcomes to be at the end, allowed us to be proactive at what we needed to do at the beginning of the year. Our budget committee and school board members made a very difficult decision, if you'll recall, and we reduced our overall operating budget by 5%. We did that proactively because we were uncertain of the economic times and how a potential economic downfall could impact our services to kids. In order for us to prepare for this, we tried our best to be proactive and support our services while being fiscally responsible to our community. Thankfully, we also received several federal supports throughout this school year in ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. And I'll be one of the first to identify and acknowledge that increasing federal expenditures to public schools is not always popular, especially inside the Estacada community. But I would like to share with our community how these funds ultimately helped us have a successful school year. Because we were able to receive these additional federal monies to support our offerings and execute our high levels of learning and expectations for learning for all kids, allowed us to utilize these federal expenditures without impacting or compromising the general fund expenditure, which we could continue to focus and support for our students, our employees, and support our community. It is these federal funds that allowed us to spend on as much hand sanitizer, PPE protective equipment, invest into our ventilation and HVAC systems to ensure that our air was safe for our adults and employees to breathe, as well as for our students to be able to return back on campus. Without these additional sources of revenue for us, there is no way that our school district could have brought in these additional supports to ensure the safety of our kids and families and our employees, all while offering a high level of educational supports to our kids inside the classroom. I do want to point out that our employees, our teachers, our school board of directors, and every single person who had a role this school year inside our school district gave everything they had to put the best product that we could on our campuses. And I just commend every single person who played that role and who helped support our school district. It was not perfect. It is not perfect. We still have a lot to improve. But that being said, I'm pleased with what we were able to accomplish. And it was thanks at the very beginning to the budget that was approved by this team, which allowed us to go execute our plan. This coming budget that you're going to see today is impressive. I want to first welcome and recognize Christina Weinard, our new Director of Finance to the school district. I will tell you that Christina has high credentials. She started in the Oregon City School District, moved to become the top financial chief for the Reynolds School District, and we are very lucky and fortunate enough to have her now inside the Estacada School District. I've had the opportunity to work with 3 now business managers in my 4 years of being your superintendent, and I will tell you that this budget message, packet, and binder that you're going to see tonight is the most impressive by far that you will see. And I'm very excited about that, as this community wants so badly to better understand what the Estacada School District does with its taxpayers' money. I believe that this is the beginning of developing a closer relationship and how we can improve the financial trust of our community and our great school districts. So I'm very excited about that. And with that being said, I will introduce Christina Weinard to the team.
Thank you very much. Mike, would you mind putting on the presentation?
As this is our first budget meeting, I'm going to start off by doing a little budget 101, kind of let you know why we're doing, what our requirements are. And I really want this to be an interactive time, so if any point there are any questions, please go ahead and stop and feel free to ask. You will see at the very front of your binder, there is a handout so you can keep track of any questions you have. I'm going to go ahead and hope I have get to change the slides, so thank you. That's not fancy.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, I went way far now. Okay, so what is the local budget law? We will find this in ORS 294.321, and it kind of just gives you here an idea of some of our requirements that we're looking in. And I won't go ahead and read them one by one, but to give you an idea. What is a budget? It is a financial plan for a fiscal period. Our fiscal year begins on July 1st and ends June 30th. The budget provides the strategic direction based on the board goals. Based on estimates of revenues and expenditures, the budget includes lawful appropriations, which gives the authority to spend public dollars. So we need that the adopted budget in order to spend. So if we do not have an adopted budget as of July 1st, at that point, we have to shut down and do business, and we're not able to spend any public dollars. So it is very important. The budget process. There's 5 phases. A requested budget at staff level, working with our staff, proposed budget, approved budget, adopted budget, and the budget in action and what can be changed. So I put a little circle there because I feel like we're always in different phases of budgets. I'm starting one budget, ending one budget. It's always a cycle of moving in the budget. Phases of a proposed budget. We develop our budget calendar that generally is adopted at the beginning of the school year. We develop our budget goals and our priorities. We prepare a proposed budget. We publish public notices, and we hold our budget committee meetings. Preparing a proposed budget is also prepared by fund. Resources and requirements, or revenues and expenditures, need to be balanced in each fund. Estimates of resources and requirements must be made on known information at one point in time. So ideally, when we're building a budget, we do not have all the information. As you know, we're still in a legislative, and we don't know what our final state money will be, but we have to make projections. And we also have to look at the needs and priorities of the district and weigh that with what we are receiving in revenues. This is a template of what our budget worksheet will look like. You'll see the past. This is actuals from the past 2 years. So this is, in their current document, you'll be looking at actuals from 2017-18 and 2018-19. You'll be, oh, nope, that's wrong, sorry. It's 18, 19, 20, and then the current year, 2021, working. And then you'll see the description, and then we'll be looking at the proposed. To project. We start by looking at our beginning fund balance, what we're projecting to end our year with in each fund. We estimate our revenues for each fund. We look at what we'll need to transfer in and out of the funds. And we project what our expenditures. We start off with salary, and then look at other contracted cost, and then utility costs, and we have to determine any increases. That's our process. Resources and revenues. So this is a look at what revenues we receive as a school district. Requirements and expenditures. This is how it is broken down by major function, what our requirements are. And this is budget by fund. I like to call this our different pots of money or our different jars of money, because they all have a little bit of different requirements on how we can spend them. And we have general fund, special revenue fund, and that's where we hold our grants. Our debt service funds, that's where we pay our debts, our bond, and our PERS, and our capital project funds. And this is where we hold the money to do big capital projects, or if once we get approved for a bond, this is where we'll hold those expenditures. Appropriate by function. So the state law requires us to have a budget that is appropriated by function. And we use instruction, support services, community services, facility acquisition and construction, other uses, which is debt services, contingencies, and appropriate ending fund balance. Objects, this is how we spend within each of those major functions. And we have salaries, associated payroll costs, purchase services, supplies and materials, capital outlay, other objects, transfers, and contingencies. Any questions so far? Sorry, I talk fast, so. A little information about what our requirements are when we publish for our budget meetings. We have to be printed in a newspaper or a general circulation, or mailing first class to each street house in our area, or hand delivery. We have to publish 5 days in advance, no more than 30 days, and we have to publish twice, at least 5 days apart. Budget committee. What is a budget committee? It consists of our governing body, or our board, plus equal number of appointed electors. Appointed members cannot be employees, agents, or officers of the district, and they serve in a staggered 4-year term. All members of the budget committee have the same authority. Budget committee duties. You received your budget document today. You've heard this and have the superintendent's budget message. You review the proposed budget. You hear public questions or comments. You discuss and adjust the budget as determined by the majority. And you approve the budget and recommend adoption to the board. And then you approve proposed property taxes or the taxes levied. All meetings of the budget committee are in public. You have to allow public comment at one or more meetings. The budget becomes a public document when released to the committee. And there is a quorum required to conduct business as a budget committee. At the first meeting, which we've already did, because we're kind of combining 2 meetings in one, we elect presiding officer, receive the budget document, hear the budget message, and allow public comment. A majority of the committee must approve the motion in order for it to be approved. The budget committee can approve the proposed budget as presented or amend it. Once approved, the budget committee work is complete until the next budget cycle. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this. This is what the law requires, but I know that Superintendent Carpenter and I have talked about how we can engage our budget committee more throughout the year, that it's not just a couple months cycle. And so we're going to be working a lot more, so you should be hearing on some ideas, and maybe we will ask you for any suggestions. Some of my ideas are making sure that you receive the monthly board reports, maybe have a quarterly, maybe, I don't know, we're going to be addressing that and talking that more, but it's something we're very excited about. Sorry. publish summary and public. So after approved, we have to again do a publishing. Again, it has to be 5 days before the budget hearing or 30 days before the board hearing. In that, you can see we're required to do ED1, ED2, ED3 forms, and we have to say when the public hearing is, and there has to be a budget document available for review. The budget hearing will be at the June board business meeting. Again, testimony will be available for interested parties. And the governing body is to consider the budget committee's work and public comments, and then deliberate on the budget document, and then hopefully adopt. Again, you have the ability to adjust budget estimates or proposed taxes. A little note, you may increase expenditures within limits. So the expenditures is either more than 10%, if any expenditure in any fund increased by more than 10% or 5,000, whichever is greater, or the remaining rate of amount of tax increases by any amount, then we have to republish the budget and hold another public hearing before adopting. Any questions about the Budget 101? Okay, I'm going to go into our proposed budget, and I just want to note for anybody that is listening, this is published on our website under the business office page. And I also want to comment and thank Nick Hogan for preparing the budget before he left. This is my 4th week here, and I've been very busy getting to know Estacada, and I'm very grateful that he finished this before he left, because it is a lot of work to prepare a budget. And I've spent a lot of time digging in and really trying to understand so that I can present it for you. I've built charts and to analyze the information, so I'm very excited to share the proposed budget with you. Okay, this proposed budget is with the revenues. We're using the governor's budget, which was $9.1 billion through the state school fund, and that is a 49-51 split for this biennium. So we're the first year of the biennium's 2021 to 2023. I will note that that is not a final number. That is just the number that we have at this time. I know there's legislators really trying hard to get more state school funding. And so if that does happen, we will have to come back and do a supplemental. But this is the information, and this is the final estimate that we received from the state on February 26, 2021. Another note, we are using a fully funded Measure 98, and that's about $800 per ADMW at high school age students. And our student investment account, our SIA funds, is 70%. That is very amazing, because this current year we're looking at 1/3 of our SIA plan. So we did get an increase in our SIA, and we're being budgeted at 70% of our approved plan.
Are we going to dive into exactly what that is?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to dive into exactly what that student investment account is?
Yeah, I do have later slides. We're going to share with you what we are using that for, and I'll have the dollar amount on a later slide.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our assumptions that we made when building this budget is we are looking at a full school year, 5 days a week. We are including salary schedule step for all staff. COLA, our teachers get a 2.5 per contract. Our classified get a 2%, and our administrators get a 2.5. There's a 2 to 3% increase in health insurance benefits for all staff. And we are, for a first time in a very long time, seeing a decreased PERS cost for this biennium. I do want to note that it is already projected that our next biennium is going to go up again. So this is a temporary decrease, but it is yet a decrease that we are excited for. General fund revenue assumptions, our beginning fund balance, we're projecting just over 4 million. Our local property tax revenues is 6.8 million. And our local, intermediate, and federal revenues is 820,000. Just a little bit more diving into the state school fund, some components of it. Our enrollment, we get about 23.32 million. Our transportation grant, we're getting about 1.26. That's our 70% reimbursement that we're getting. And our common school fund is 320,000, just over that. And that total we're getting is 24.9 million. I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to have a couple of slides where I'm going to be talking about ADMW and trying to explain it. That is how we're paid, our state school fund. You'll see here that this is our current year, what we're looking at for our next year, not our current year, sorry. Again, I'm into budgets. Our next year, what is good about this is that state school fund gives us a hold harmless clause. So they allow us to have a decreased enrollment for 1 year. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at, you'll see the 2021-22, it's projected to be 3,454.5. And I want to note, that is a number that we gave the state in December. We have to do projections in December for the following year. So as we know, we're already projecting higher than that. But at this time, that is what they're using. The good news is we're not being paid on that amount because you'll see the 2020-21 here is 3,605. So they're paying us our state school fund off the 3,605, which is our current ADMW. Any questions on that? And then right here is what we're looking at for our projection enrollment. This is not our EDMW, this is our actual count for students in our schools. And you can see that our actual this year is 17,080, and our projection for next year is 18,068. So this is our extended ADMW. This is exactly what it looks like from the state, and this is how it is weighted out. And you can see that there, the 2021-22. And you go down and you add up our top line, which is our regular count, our normal enrollment, and you move all the way down, and that gives us our ADMW. And then I want to bring you over to the 2020-21 year. You add all that up down there, it equals 2,145. But our extended ADMW is 3,605. And that's because our charter schools have 1,459. So we're being paid off both ours and the charter schools ADMW added together.
Christine, just to be clear on this, the ADM are in the middle there, the 3050, that's a state number, right? 3,050?
3,600, where are you seeing?
Very top of the page, right dead center in the middle.
Yeah, that's a state number.
So that's what everything starts from, and then as we add in all the different characteristics of our school, we get to 3454.
Yeah.
And then from that, you're either last year or this year, they choose the higher of the two.
Yeah. So the 2021-22, it includes the charter schools. So they're adding both us and the charter schools in those numbers, whereas the 2020-21, it's separated out. So that's the big difference between those two. But you are exactly right. The ADMR is not an actual daily count, kind of averages. They look at how many days and the month they're in there. So it's not a number that I would be able to show you up on a spreadsheet like we do, but that's how it is calculated.
Is that the same number that, say, Corbett or Lake Oswego or Burns would be using as well?
Oh, no, that's special for us.
The
Correct.
3050 is?
Yes,
Okay.
that's our average enrollment, not our average enrollment, our regular enrollment in class is what they call it. ADMR is average daily membership regular.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, talking a little bit more about the revenues. The proposed budget for all funds is $48,685,629. This is an increase of $2.4 million or 5.28% from this current year. The proposed budget, all funds you can see here broken out by revenue source. The 54% of our revenue is the state funding. And again, this right here is not only our state school fund, it is also any state grants that we're receiving, such as the SIA and Measure 98. So that's what the 54% is, all of those. The proposed budget, all funds, this is a look at our expenditures by major function. And instruction is about 24.83 million or 51% of our expenditures. And you'll see there support services is 27%. This is a look at our salary and our benefits by year. The first 5 right there are salaries for the last 5 years. The middle 5 is our benefits for the last 5 years. And the final 5 is the total of both of those together. And in this, I want to show you that we are adding some positions for this year, this budget. We are adding a learning specialist at the high school, a school psychologist, a director of technology, and a school counselor at River Mill. And this is a look at our total proposed budget. This is broken out by fund and major function or appropriation. And now we're going to take some look at general fund. So the general fund is budgeted, proposed to be $36,575,980. This is an increase of $1.7 million or 4.9% compared to our current budget. The primary source of our general fund is our state sources, totaling $24.91 million or 68% of all of our sources. The next is our property taxes, or our local services, which is $7.12 million. Salaries and associated payroll costs are the largest budget category at $19.4 million or 53%. So I want to show you a little bit more about this. Salaries and associated and payroll costs, those both there together equal 53%. And those are all contract, and we're obligated by contracts to do those. Purchase services is also, a lot of those are already on contracts. And that is also bringing people in to provide services and support our students, working directly with them for like SLPs and some other care. So page C1 of your proposed budget. You've been looking at this a lot with Nick throughout the year, so just wanted to bring this up and talk about this a little bit more. I don't believe anything's changed on it since Nick has last presented, except I did, the transfers did increase a little bit. And you'll see here that the revenues is estimated to be $36,575,000. This is just general fund. And the expenditures are balanced, equal the same number. And I
Christina,
think
do you want questions on this as we go through?
Yes.
Or, so on C1, as I look at this, we have, let me look here. So local property taxes are forecasted to go down this year, based on the 2021, 2022 proposed.
Yeah, and I could comment on that. It's kind of a weird year in COVID that we had an increased property tax than we were used to. And that's kind of throughout the state, because normally you would think during a pandemic when people are at a loss but we actually, as a state, received more income tax. And so our property taxes did go up more than normal. So that's why we were averaging out and projecting it a little bit lower again.
Okay, and then we looked at forecasted, and I think I understand why this doesn't make sense, but I just want to verbalize it really quick. So we looked at enrollment is anticipated to go up, yet our state school funding is coming down by over $800,000. And the note on that says that it's reduced by 50 students and a normal loss to CDL. So why are those not connecting for me?
Yeah, great question. So as much as we're hoping and that we keep our level of enrollment and that it continues to climb, it is an anomaly. It's not happening throughout the state. So that is why we're being a little careful with our projection.
Okay, perfect. So this is the budgetary projection as opposed to the enrollment projection, which
Correct.
we use separately for different planning purposes.
Yes.
Okay,
Plus, because the charter school is tethered to this,
Right.
it was a big boom at the charter school, and we're anticipating that's
but
going to
that'll go down. And then the next one on expenditures under line 400, supplies and materials. I'm assuming this is a decrease based on, we bought a lot of materials that we've stockpiled and some equipment that we don't have to buy again next year, I'm assuming is COVID related, was the increase of $600,000 from budget last year, this current year to actual.
Yeah, and we also did have some of our ESSER monies in this year's budget for supplies where we bought student technology, and we will not budgeting for that going
Okay,
next year.
perfect. And then the last question, I don't see ESSER 3 in here anywhere.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you. I was just waiting for you to get to this page, so.
No, that's great. I'm glad I did. Any other questions from the board or budget committee?
Oh, so that's where budget committee is?
They're,
I was like writing a note, where is the
Oh,
rest of
I'm
the
supposed to read
committee?
They're on.
yeah, our budget committee is virtual.
Hello.
Okay, going a little bit more, we're going to talk a little bit about the student investment account. As I say, we're very excited that we're being funded 70% this year. That is, we're going to receive approximately $1.23 million for the student investment account. And here you'll see where we've been able to improve to the Estacada students using the student investment account. You can see I don't necessarily have to read every one of them for you. Increased FTE in the following areas.
Are we going to go into some of these details?
We sure can.
Superintendent Carpenter, around some of the vocational programs and what that means, the details of that?
Yes, we can do that. This is the time to do that
Okay,
now, though.
I guess it just seems pretty general to me, so I'm just curious as to what that actually means.
Sure. So at this moment, it goes back to some of the reductions that we made last year. So we will be bringing back manufacturing at the high school level, I believe, at full-time, because we moved some things around to bring that program back. And then middle school vocational, I think that's still up in the air, but it just provides a FTE space to meet the needs of student voice and what they're looking for.
So we've already designated what vocational programs at the high school that was going to be used for?
Correct. Yep.
And then with forecasting complete at the middle school, or I think the deadline was yesterday, does, off of that, we choose that vocational program?
Correct.
Or we bolster it up or
Yep.
add bodies?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have traditionally let our students drive what elective opportunities they'd like to have, because they don't get a choice in English, science, math, and social studies.
Are we going to continue on through the list, or you just want us to pick and choose?
Yeah.
Fire away, I think is probably better.
Class reduction at K-5 level, 1 to 25 is what we're gunning for.
Yep.
COVID's got everything screwed up, so where are we at and where are we going?
You know, we're leaving that as an opportunity for us to be flexible and where the needs are. You know, we've talked about growth and capacity. We're still unsure what the state's going to tell us we must provide next year. And so we're just really putting this as a space to be able to make sure that we can input somebody flexibly to meet the needs of whatever that plan is without impacting the general fund.
Now, is this bodies or is it bodies and space?
In this case, this is body.
This is place.
And that's it, just to clarify, to expand on Chair Wheeler's statement, it's not necessarily to reduce the class size below 25. It's
Correct.
to give us the opportunity to stay at 25 if
Yep.
the numbers are coming up.
That is correct. And
Okay.
a great example is because we're doing a hybrid model where there are some kids full-time online and some kids on campus, the online portion of that hybrid made our class sizes in the 40s for that elementary age online. And so we utilize some of this money to break that online class up to reduce those class sizes.
So the additional middle school PE teacher, will that mean we have 3 full-time PE teachers?
That's correct.
And do you know what the class size is, what that will do for our class sizes?
It should improve our class sizes. We still have space and capacity, although they're working on a model to include more health and social, emotional stuff inside of that. But the major reason why we're doing this is because there's been a law that's 3 or 4 years old that requires every kid gets PE every single day. Because of budgetary constraints, the state has not enforced that law, but they're telling us that with the student investment account, that law is going to become real. So we needed to make sure that we put that into this one. But yes, more PE for more kids.
And smaller class sizes.
And smaller
They're
class
like
sizes.
40
They're huge
in the
right
next
now,
class,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep. And we've already hired that position, by the way.
Oh, we have. Excellent.
The student investment account doesn't ring a bell to me, and I don't know if it's because I've been in COVID for the last 14 months or what. Is that another name for the cat tax?
That is correct. So if by say you own a small business, then you would.
That was me
You
opening
would-
my computer.
All right, we're getting the hang of this, community. We appreciate your patience, and sorry, Budget Committee. But yeah, you would know this as the CAT tax. This is also the Student Success Act, and we draw those funds from the student investment. Your CAT tax is the student investment account.
Okay.
The student investment account is made up of 3 different components, and one of the components of it is the SIA. Another component of it is the Measure 98, or the Ballot 98.
Gotcha. Okay.
And this 1.23 million is 70%, is that correct?
Yes,
Of
70%
funding
of
of-
what we were originally planned. So this was, we rolled it out. It was a big, long process in our 2019-20 budget process, and we were supposed to be, this was supposed to be our first year of it, but then COVID hit it, and they dramatically reduced our funding. So we went down to, as a state, to one-third of what we were originally allotted, and now we're back up to 70%.
Okay.
And that's because the CAT tax did actually pretty well during COVID, better than they thought, so they were able to fund it higher than what they were originally projected at the first revenue forecast.
We went through and made big cuts to the SSA
Yeah.
that we had anticipated.
Thanks for the refresher on that. It's all ringing a bell now.
And there's a little bit more. So here's a couple more things that we are able to do with the SIA. And then once we are fully funded, here are a couple things that we are really going to do to continue to address our students.
What does language for all K-5 mean?
So Language for All K-5, 2 or 3 years ago, we brought in and started our kindergarten and first grade, where we're utilizing, instead of students who are learning English as a second language, traditionally we used to pull that child out and do our work with them, and now we're trying to do that inside the classroom. So some of those lessons and activities are inclusive into the practice. So this year is, I think, our 3rd year. So we're kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and we're kind of working up that way. And so this is support for us to turn that all elementary now.
Thank you.
I just want to check in with Lindsay. Lindsay, you guys are able to comment? I'm just curious, we haven't heard anything.
Sorry, now first time seeing the material. I think everybody knows that they can comment if they have questions, right? Budget committee members?
Yes.
Very good, just making sure. Okay, the next thing is a little more information about the high school success, or ballot measure 98, and how we are using that funding. Again, this is about $800 ADMW per our high school students that we get, and we're projected to get about 420,000. And there's a list of things that the high school's considering. It's not yet completed. These are proposed items that they are considering in going into next year. Some of these things are already in action because we have been fully funded in high school success. Any questions?
We currently have an RTS teacher, right? So is this it's just renewed funding for that based on the funding model, right?
I think everything but career and college coordinator is currently in place.
And just renewing based on the funding?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we're going to continue the college and career. I believe we paid for that out of Student Success Act funds this year, and we're going to move it to 98 funds.
Okay, that makes sense.
When we see half-time auto teacher or third-time vice principal, the rest of that's just funded out of the general fund, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about ESSER. And this has been a really big topic, and we're very thankful that we have had this. And I just wanted to share with the Budget Committee how we have been using it and what our plans are going forward. So in 2019-20, we spent our ESSER 1, which was in direct response to COVID. This was used, we got this money with the very first stimulus. And with that, we received $266,956. And we bought personal protective equipment, PPE, and added an FTE for custodian. In the beginning of this year, 2020-21, we received a CDL gear grant. This is the second part of that first stimulus. And we were to use this directly technology related to support our students. And we bought computer hardware, or student laptops, and internet and hotspots. Again, and that is in this year's general fund. And that's $103,823. And then ESSER 2, we're still currently working our way through that. This was the second stimulus that we received. We received notification on our award amount in beginning of January, but we were able to use expenditures for the full year. We received $900,618, and you can see the list of things that we are either bought or we're still working on buying. We're projecting to fully spend this year. So none of these items are going to be in your proposed budget. And then the next is the ESSER 3. This is, again, from Biden. This is the final stimulus that we received. We're very excited. We just received our award at the end of April, and it's $2,022,660. Because of the late notice of this, it is not in our proposed budget because we did not know the amount at the time that we were building this document. And we are going to try to spend some of that with board approval this year. And so whatever we don't spend this year, we'll bring as a supplemental budget into next year because of the amount. But you can see there the items that we are proposing that we can spend the money on.
And there's not an issue with amending the budget, but the importance of amending the budget is because if we don't amend the budget, we can't spend the money even if we get it.
Correct.
So-
The state allows us to amend our budget if we're not aware of the revenue that could be happening or coming during our budget process.
So, and I just wanted to make sure because we are aware of it now in our budget process, so we're still covered. Because technically
Yes.
we're aware of it. So do we need to make an adjustment now or we're covered as far as the legal side of it?
We're covered because they allow us to take a snap point, a
Snapshot.
picture, a snap, yeah,
Okay,
at a
perfect.
snap point in time and then move forward with that.
Perfect, thank
Yeah.
you.
And that's all I have to share with you about our proposed budget. I am more than happy to dig into anything else if you have any questions.
I just had a quick question about the projected enrollment slide.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like IEPs were staying flat, but RFL doubled, students' poverty had doubled. I'm just curious, is that an actual projection? Or,
Oh, the poverty in our ADMW?
correct?
Yeah, the poverty they look at and they will adjust. So when they're projecting this year, they're using last year's numbers and then it'll come in and kind of roll in based upon actions. The ADMW, is that what you're talking about, the
Yeah.
number? It normally doesn't move a ton.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
I have a question. And perhaps it's in there, and I didn't see this come through till 5 o'clock, so I didn't have a chance to look over it before our meeting tonight, but last year we talked about the buses that we were in the process of replacing, because by law they had to be replaced within a certain time frame. Is that in this budget? Have we been given a deferral on that because of COVID, or what's happening with the bus situation?
Great question. If you go to page C2 of your budget document,
Okay.
you'll see the list of transfers that we're proposing, and I'll go ahead and go down that. We're proposing moving $100,000 to food services, $180,000, so it won't, I don't think that will fund 2 full buses, but that will give some funding for buses. $425,000 for athletics, and then $50,000 for our biomass. That's our debt payment for our debt payment.
And just to clarify on that, we're planning to move 180,000 now, but we can always move from general funds later. So it's more of a conservative approach to say, we feel good that we can definitely do this, and if we have additional cash that frees up, then we can move more and purchase it.
So does that put us on track to be where we need to be with the deadlines that we have on that, with what we're doing?
Answer that question, and it really is a good question. We made the decision not to purchase 2 buses this year out of financial precautionary measures, but we believe that we have about 7 buses to go, if I'm not mistaken, that need to be retrofitted by 2025. What we're now taking a look at, buses that are left to retrofit are still actually in pretty good shape, or that don't meet the criteria. And so right now we're talking about the of potentially making those retrofits to keep those buses on the road, but but still it's important that we stick to renewal schedule so we don't get into the same spot that we were in 5 or 6 years ago when we had to make this plan.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, we talk about 2 a year?
Correct. That's what we've been trying to do. Yep.
And I have a question regarding the athletics amount. It seems like it seems pretty high, so I'm not sure what's included in there. Is it staffing or adding?
Really great question. So this year, we made the determination not to charge any student or families for athletic fees. And so typically, those athletic fees offset the overall cost of what it takes for us to run athletics. We also, as a district, made the determination to pay our coaches. Even last spring, as we didn't offer sports, we still continued to pay them because we wanted to keep them on staff. We thought we had good coaches and we didn't want to lose them. And so our expenditures for athletics virtually remained the same, and we weren't collecting any revenue for them. So it was a cost that we decided to absorb.
Thank you.
So are we planning to continue that process into 2021, 2022 is what it looks like, because it's the same dollar amount?
Yes, I guess then. No, I would not say that that's necessarily our plan.
Okay.
You can probably answer this better than I do, but I know that we typically wait until the season is over, and then we move funds over to make it whole again. So I do anticipate that to be different, even if that's what it is projected. However, I think we probably should have a conversation at some point about what we want to do with athletics and fees and access to kids being able to play.
Right. Okay.
In a normal situation year, we always have a transfer to athletics, right?
Correct. And nutrition services.
Which we can see the 2 previous years, we budgeted $300,000 to transfer over for athletics, just to give some historical context there. And that's with charging fees and all of those things. So it's an increase of 125 without collecting fees from students, but still the same number of, essentially the same expenses.
We also traveled considerably less, so that would be a bigger hole next year with travel.
Gotcha.
Can I ask Christina and Superintendent Carpenter if you feel like this proposed budget that we're looking at in front of us is in line with the board's goals and the strategic, outlook of the district?
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. We do believe that this, we measure this up against our strategic plan. We've had opportunities, to meet with our board team as we had a workshop last week in terms of how to allocate some of the funds and work through the process. So at this point, we are very confident that this is the budget that will set us up for success next year. Yes, confidently.
How do we feel about?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Ben.
Today was looking more like 9.3, at least in the news. That doesn't mean anything. And then we're at 9.1. Will we just continue on with 9.1? If we get 9.3, it's just better for us, or will we make an adjustment once that gets finalized?
Yeah, great question. The 9.3 did pass the Ways and Means Committee subcommittee. It does have, I think, 3 more committees to move before it is official, including the Senate. So we are not comfortable moving forward beyond the 9.1 right now. If it does come back 9.3, I will, at that point, work with superintendent, and then we'll come back to the board and say what that means to us as Reynolds, and then we can make adjustments based upon that at that time.
Is there a timeline that we would like to see that happen? I realize by law they have to do it by a certain deadline, but they don't always follow that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We also have the May forecast. It should be, I don't remember the date right now. That will be coming out, and that will be a factor too. So there's a lot of things that are still up in the air prior to us getting our final number. We probably won't get another estimate for the state until mid-June. So the 9.1 is the number that the last number that they gave us, showing us our breakdown.
Okay, thank you.
As we improve our vision for how we execute our district finances, actually, both Christina and I would actually propose that we approve this through the Budget Committee tonight and move it to the board level for the next board meeting for final approval, because we intend to incorporate our Budget Committee much more frequently throughout the school year to keep them involved in how the money moves and those final actions. And so, everything in this current environment is so fluid and there's so little to be known. We would almost rather approve a 9.1 and move forward and then make the adjustments as necessary, because those are the things that we know that are concrete at the moment.
Are there any other questions out there? Is there, I don't know if we've got any public with us. Are there any public comments out there?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay, I'm moving down the agenda then. I think I'm on number 9. Budget Committee, Jody, Melanie, Ralph, do you guys have anything that you would like to deliberate on, questions, concerns with us moving forward at this point?
Not me. I'm okay.
Melanie, I haven't heard anything from you tonight.
Yeah, I feel confident with approving this tonight and moving forward. And I know that we've talked in the past about being more involved throughout the year, and I think this is the year to make it happen. We can do it. So I would appreciate that, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be all the time, but I know that this committee would be happy to be more involved, and if we need to come back together and we look at things, that would be a great reason to come back and we look at it if it was increased. But this looks solid, and I feel like I'm confident with it, so
Thank you.
thanks to staff for all their work on it. And welcome to Christina.
Thank you.
Okay. And I think that I am going to open it up to see if I have a motion out there.
You need a motion to approve the budget?
Yeah, I need someone to move, I need someone to second, and then, I don't know about you guys that help me out, that when we do the motion, do you want them to read from the motion levy document?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if somebody would like to move, I'll just wait too.
I so move.
Okay, so Ralph is moving, do you want me to go ahead and read that? Okay, for Ralph. So Ralph Branson moves that the Budget Committee of the Escada School District hereby approves the 2021-22 proposed budget in the total sum of $48,685,629, and that the permanent tax rate of $4.1476 per thousand of assessed value be levied upon all taxable property within the district, and also that the tax of $2,732,175 be levied upon all taxable property and categorized as education within the district to retire a portion of the district's long-term bonded debt obligation. That's sufficient? Okay.
Works for me. Thank you. I've got a motion out there. Anybody want to second that?
Second it.
Thank you. I've got a first and second. Open it up for discussion. Any discussion out there before we move forward? No discussion? Okay, I think we're going to put it up for a vote. And how would you guys like to do that? Do we need to do a call for the vote?
Want a roll call? Let's just do a raise of hands.
Raise your hands. Okay, everybody in favor, raise your hand.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
Awesome, motion carried, thank you. I hope I read the right motion, because I think I have two different things here, but I think we all agreed that that was. I think we all agreed on the one dated May 13th, 2021. Perfect, okay, thank you.
Agree or disagree, Melanie?
Awesome.
It is now.
Not going back.
Thank you guys so much, let me know what our next steps are.
I'll say thank you very much, Budget Committee, and we look forward to developing how we can work more with you throughout the year.
Yeah, so early on, I want to say thank you as well. Early on, our conversations is we're going to do something very robust quarterly, where we give you all an update of what's going well, some barriers that we're experiencing through the budget, and what our next steps with. And then we also hope to include our budget meeting in just communications. We have a budget committee pillar group that meets once a month, and you will be communicated with monthly on the updates of that status as well. So part of our team, and we want to make you a stronger part of our team. So that's our plan for now.
If I can also, Superintendent Carpenter, it'd be great, Budget Committee, if you guys are up and willing for it, as we go through the year and we do need to do transfers from one fund to the next, it would be great to get that out to you ahead of time so that you could be part of those meetings, if nothing other than part of the audience of the meeting, so that you're fully aware of what moves need to be made, why they're being made, so that's obvious to you as well throughout the year as we work through after the budget season is over.
I think we would appreciate that. We know that our job is done now, but just knowing we don't have a voice in it from here on out, but just knowing the decisions that are being made amongst the board would be helpful. Not leading into the next budget cycle. So thank you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
You can adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Woo!
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, school board. Bye-bye.
go ahead and call over the Board of Directors meeting, May 13th, 2021. We get a roll call.
Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Vice Chair Rydell,
Present.
Director Shibahara,
Here?
Director Johnston,
Here.
Director Berman, Director Martinez,
Here.
Director Snyder,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Excellent. Let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. Before we get underway here, the Escada School Board would like to take a moment to now recognize the loss of Escada Middle School teacher Samantha Fox. The board would like to extend our condolences to her family, her colleagues, and her students. Samantha was a talented educator who dedicated more than 20 years of service to this district and enriched the lives of many Escada children. We will move forward with a commitment in honoring and respecting her life and legacy, as well as maintaining the privacy and compassion that her family deserves during this difficult time. Let's go ahead and move on to the, actually, Denise, is this meeting properly notified?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to the adoption of the agenda. Everybody had a chance to glance at that, I believe. If there's any changes, we'd like to make those now, if possible.
Were the changes made?
What was that, Rochelle?
Okay, there were a couple changes, right, that were being
And-
added?
N was added,
Additions.
Yeah, additions, I don't know,
and O were the late additions to the agenda.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second?
Motion by Director Shibahara. Any discussion? Okay, none noted. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Excellent. We will move on with the agenda as presented. One thing, Board of Directors, I'd like to just remind us to speak into the mic. We got an air conditioner back here that makes it a little bit difficult for some of us to hear. And let's start with the Board of Directors reports. We're going to start over with Director Johnson first. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Chair Wheeler. Just a quick readout from the Inclusive Practices and Collaborative Culture Pillar meeting. It was a great meeting. I wanted to call out, some of the wins that were presented and, really driving down the yellows that are in that bucket to separate them out where we're going to move forward with some of them, stop what we're not doing to get to the green. And it seems like all the pillar leaders are really taking, accountability for those and making sure that they're moving the needle. So I'm really glad the team was able to report on that. And then we also talked about at the end of the meeting about how to engage the public a little bit more in this meeting and what we can all do as a group to make sure there's more public views on the live feed, as well as more comments made to the public understanding what we're trying to accomplish in those meetings. So we're all coming up with ideas and bringing them back to the next pillar meeting to discuss. And that's all I have for today.
Thanks, Director Johnson. Director Shibahara?
All right, thank you. I will also give a quick pillar update for engaged family and communities. We met this last week and was excited to see that everything is trending green, mostly completed and on track. And really the big call out was the survey results and getting all that back. And for the most part, everything was trending up and very positive. I mean, obviously there's still low areas and areas of improvement, but it was really kind of focusing on, we hadn't had a chance to really review all that. I'm hoping today during the board meeting we'll get a chance to get more information, but really excited about that. And then just a couple other things, just sharing out that some senior parents we met, there's a subset of us who met last week, just trying to take a chance to make sure we're honoring our seniors this year because it's, again, a different kind of year for them, and trying to find a way to celebrate each and every single one of them, because we do not have Safe Act activities and some other things that we've been able to, provide in the past. And unfortunately, the way things are and how close we are to graduation, we didn't feel comfortable actually providing some form of group activity or celebration. But we are trying to get some donations, some cash donations, whether it's private donations or business donations, to help, add to some of the boosters gift bags that that they're preparing for the seniors. So anyway, just kind of putting a plug out there. If anybody wants to help support that, that would be great. And then just one other exciting thing, boys tennis. This is personal update. Districts. So my son Ty and his doubles partner, Carson, are in the district finals tomorrow. And they made it to state. So that's pretty cool. And then there's also another doubles team that is in the consolation bracket tomorrow as well. So pretty exciting to see them being successful and getting to play. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Shapiro. Vice Chair Rydell.
Thank you, Chair Wheeler. Yeah, some fun stuff going. We did have the high school put on a play here a few weeks ago. So Puffs, that is kind of a spoof on Harry Potter. So very well done. And again, applaud our performing arts group for continuing to find ways to have kids participate and perform. Most districts are not even trying to tackle that or haven't until very recently. So I also know in conversations that I've had, several surrounding school districts have reached out to Estacada Performing Arts to say, how'd you do it? What were the ways that you made it happen? And Barlow in particular is moving forward with one right now based on the feedback and support that Estacada was able to provide them. So really exciting about that. We do have Spring Fling coming up here in the next, before the end of the school year. I couldn't tell you the dates right at the moment. But again, continuing to drive that forward. I was not able to attend the Pillar meeting, so thank you, Director Johnston, for that recap. And then, as you may know, I have joined the Clackamas ESD Budget Committee. So I am on that budget committee. Had my orientation this week. I'm supposed to receive the 180-page budget sometime next week, and then we will have our meeting the following week. So look forward to learning more about that and bringing some of that back to our district as well, so that we have a clearer understanding of how the ESD budget works. But also to have representation from Estacada in the ESD, I think, which is a good thing. So I'm excited to be there. That's all I got.
Thank you. Let's go, Director Snyder.
I don't have a lot to report. We didn't have our Pillar Committee meeting. We're postponing it to next month. I guess I just want to give a shout out to all the teachers and the administrators and all the staff for everything that they've been going through this past few months and this entire year. Our community definitely has stepped up and over leaps and bounds and still just keeps on pushing forward. So thank you very much. And on a side note, soccer for the fall is open. So if you have any soccer players out there, register your kiddos. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Martinez.
Don't have much to report. I think from our last Pillar meeting was in April, and I think it's moving along. I'm glad to see, and hopefully today we'll share some additional reporting and some graphs that we discussed last time. So it seems like it's moving along. We're still working with the data, and we requested a little bit more of details and graphics to make it easier for us and parents and the public to understand what the data is telling us. So looking forward to that. Excited. Basketball just started for middle school. So looking forward to a great season for our students.
Thank you. A couple things on my end. Well, not my end, but elections are May 18th. We have 4 school board members positions open. 4. I only got one on my ballots. I only know, and he was running unopposed. I won't point him out though. So just get your ballot turned in. A couple other local elections being held as well with the fire board. I wanted to give a shout out to Director Johnson and the Youth Baseball Board of Directors. Put on a successful American level tournament last weekend. I know you burned the midnight oil for several weeks setting that up, and I appreciate it, and everybody else does as well. It was a big success. Lots of out-of-area teams came to Estacada to enjoy the fresh air and the freshly cut grass. And a lot of baseball was had. Other than that, I always find it interesting that we're talking about tennis and basketball and wrestling. And last month we were talking about soccer and football, and we kind of skipped over baseball. But I'm just glad to see that things are happening in Estacada. So without any further ado, let's move on to the strategic plan pillar reports. And first up is Director Scott Sullivan. So happy to be here. He's jumping up.
And as Director Sullivan puts on the PowerPoint slide, I think it's important to remember that green, when we see greens tonight, that means that our change agent is in the systems and we have evidence to show that it's working. If it's yellow, our change agent is in the system, but it's too soon to tell, or we're not getting data to tell us if it's working or not yet. And red means the change agent is in the system, but the evidence is telling us it didn't work. So I just wanted to clarify that too, as we talk a lot about our action steps today. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Wheeler, and thank you for your kind comments about Ms. Fox. And Ms. Shibahara, Director Shibahara, you could count me in for $50.
Thank you.
And I challenged everyone else in this room to match or double that.
Thank you.
We'll make sure that happens. Okay? Now, the good stuff. We did not have an April meeting. I had to leave town and go see my mother, who turned 91 in the Bay Area, so I must apologize for having to miss that meeting and not having that take place. As you already know what our goals are, our strategic actions, so I'm going to skip forward because our directors, Director Martinez and Snyder, asked for a better graphic representation of our data so that they can see, that not just they, so all of us can see quickly what it all means. So this first graph that we have here is an overall percentage of students passing the essential learning standards. That would be every grade level and every subject level. And you can see, I hope, maybe on your screen, that far end is at 67%, and it's been at 67 for a couple of weeks. But we started back in November in the 40s, in the low 40s. So you'll see over time some growth overall. You'll see some big hits, and then it's kind of flattened out here of late. So I want to thank our directors for those recommendations, because I think this does a good job of giving us that visual to see. Another visual that we added is for math and English language arts. We showed by month each building scores. And you'll see in here 3 of our 4 buildings in math from December to April have seen increases. River Mill 41 to 76. CRE 36 up to 79, currently at 69. Middle school is the one difference there. They've been pretty flat in their growth. There has been some, but it's been pretty flat. And then EHS started at 58 and is up to about 88%. And again, you'll see that they're making progress. And I won't say that EMS is not making progress. I think that they are really working hard to stay focused on accurate reporting, and they're just struggling with getting those kids a little bit further. But I have no doubt that we will do better. In the ELA side, we see again some increase every month. CRE had a little bit of a hiccup, it looks like, in April, but pretty much some very high scores, and we're getting there. Talked to the principals in my rounding. They're doing a lot of reteaching. They're doing a lot of data collection to identify kids' strengths and weaknesses. and addressing those strengths or those weaknesses specifically in assessment so they could try to move the dial, move the needle over and get some more kids to meet. Any questions about those three graphs? Did those help?
Question like CRE, they're 57% in March, then we dipped to 37%. Is that you think a data error, or is it because we're adding standards and the kids just haven't came up to speed yet?
A little of both. I think one of the things we might have seen is that we might not have every teacher might not have had the opportunity to submit the data for every student. And so the data takes a little while to really come together. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but you have two experts on this panel that know that ELS dashboard like the back of their hand. And I'd be happy to share with you, but you know what? You got some winners right here.
I'll save my other question.
What is our target percentage again on
85%.
85%.
85%. Is there any other data that you would like to see graphically? Please let Mr. Carpenter know, and he'll get that to me, and then I'll have somebody else do the work. Okay? All right. My rounding for the month, I want to give you a quick rounding report. There's still three big themes, a little bit similar to last month, but we continue to have good discussions around data at every school. Our schools are looking at data like never before. Individuals are collecting data like never before, not just in learning, but also in their leader action plans that you will see tonight from some of the other pillars. There are two big opportunities that I see. One of those is to continue to create tough questions when I meet with people, to ask them to focus on what they're doing in their building and the process. Really, the end data isn't what I'm worried about right now or concerned about. It's the process. Are we collecting data? Are we analyzing it? Are we making a decision to do something about it? And then are we measuring that decision and whether it worked or not so we can identify what to do next? That cycle, that improvement cycle, and that is the process that we're really trying to focus on as much as we can. I need to continue to coach up our leaders to focus on student data and on our collections of data. And the last thing, action step to be taken based on my rounding is continue to train our team to round with their leader action plans in mind. And I think as a result of some of that, you'll see a lot more greens and fewer reds. Not that I had anything to do with it, but leader action plan progress. This is for math and ELA. You'll see that they're pretty similar. We have some in the green. Most of the yellows are from school sites that still they're waiting for that final data that we'll know in June. Pillar committee recommendations from 2 months ago was to train our directors on the use and meaning of pillar and essential learning standards dashboards. We did have a nice training, I think. I'm willing to continue training anyone. But I hope that went well for our team. We're also trying to get a better understanding of 30 days of progress towards our goals. And the visual graphics help, but I think we're still missing something, and we're going to be coming back and talking about that. So that's still in progress. And we talked about finding more data on, I looked at that darn Mr. Carpenter, and I saw him smiling, and I looked at my clock, and I'm ready to leave here.
Thank you, Mr.
So I'll just say that I'm in progress as we try to continue to find more ways to produce our student data in-house for where our kids go beyond. Next 30 days, we didn't have one, so we didn't have anything, and so I apologize for that again. Any questions?
Yeah, one question. Back to some of those graphs, slides 6 and 7. The bar graphs by school. And don't need to get into the data now, but I'm assuming within that we're also identifying is there particular grade levels that need to be focused on that are driving those numbers. So I can circle back with the board members on that, but I'm hopeful that we are looking at that level as well.
The buildings are definitely, and the teachers are. That is available in the dashboard. We don't have it available pulled out to graph yet, but we might be able to.
Great.
I have a question as it pertains to all of this stuff in the pillar. So when we were talking about the strategic plan 2 years ago, is that when we adopted it?
Yes.
And we were putting the emphasis on the pillar itself. One of the things that the board had talked about in length was not adding work to people's schedules, but rather integrating what we're already doing into this. Now that we're 2 years into this, do you feel like we're kind of in a groove and that all of this data and information is just part of the program and it's being helpful, or is it still seen as a burden?
Excellent question, President Wheeler.
That sounds good.
It's not a natural state yet. I think we're getting in the habit. I know we're in the habit, but the ultimate goal is to get it down into the classroom level where it becomes habit and something that just happens. There is an added burden to collecting the data, or not collecting it, they're doing it. It's not anything new, but to put it on paper so that we can record it and then analyze it. That is the biggest challenge that we have, I think, at the classroom level, is getting our teachers and our folks to understand how to easily transfer the data that they know and feel and see when they grade papers and assessments, and have that in some kind of a format that we can pull the data quickly, easily, and then do some analysis on that data.
So you think over time it's going to just take that natural state and it's going to become easier and easier, and it's just going to be what we do, and this is just the process?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think we're going to be there sooner than later.
good. That's a good note. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Actually, before he leaves, is there any other questions? I feel like I was kind of hogging the time there. Okay.
Okay, now.
Thank you.
Oh, wait.
All right, next up, we have Inclusive Culture with Jason Hobson and Lisa.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Good afternoon, evening.
Please tell me if I don't talk loud enough. So, pillar update for the inclusive culture. We're going to start off a little bit differently tonight. As Director Johnston was talking about how our last meeting we had really started to dive in on everything and really talk about and collaborate how to grow our action plans to the green, as Ryan was talking about. So, our first one tonight is actually for our pillar committee. So, because of their work and their time that they've given us, they allowed us to really think about how to approach the leaders, to encourage them to look at their plans, dissect their plans, and see really where they were at. We had some people in red that really weren't in red. We moved them to yellow. We had some people in yellow who really shouldn't be there, and we moved them to green. So as you can see from the last month's pillar meeting to our most recent, which was, this is about our 80 or 85 day mark of our 90-day cycle, we've moved the majority of our plans in the entire pillar to green. The green's just not staying there. Everybody's monitoring, everybody's maintaining, and this is all across the board: employee engagement, district services, and student engagement. So Kelly, Jason, and I really wanted to thank our pillar committee, Vice Chair Rydell, Director Johnston, Sarah Lawson, our transportation coordinator, and Jocelyn McIntyre, our Estacada High School vice principal. They've all taken the time, and it's a really great conversation, and we really enjoyed it, so thank you. Our next big win, and Superintendent Carpenter will talk a little bit more about it later, but we did get our employee engagement results in. We haven't done a real deep dive into this. We will be after our 90-day rollout, but our score in fall was a 4.07, and we were hoping within a year we'd get it to 4.12. Our spring survey pulse check went out, about 226 responses. Our overall mean went up 0.11 to a 4.18, which already surpasses our goal for fall of 21. So we're hoping to keep on this trajectory. We're hoping it blows it out of the water even more in the fall. And we're really excited. And unfortunately, I forgot to bring the numbers, but one of the things you can tell when your employees are really engaged is what they say about you outside. One of the questions on our employee engagement was, would you recommend our school district to a family friend? It went up I think, 0.12. So our employees are enjoying being here, they're engaged, they're listening, and you said, is it hard? It's becoming their work too. They're starting to see how this work can really work within the classroom as well as a collaborative culture within their schools. So as far as employee engagement, we're rocking it. District services rocking it. Student engagement, Jason's going to touch on it a little bit, but again, thank you to the Pillar Committee. We really appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
Thank you, Lisa.
Any questions for Lisa?
I think that question, Lisa, if given a choice, I would recommend that a parent select this district for his or her
Yeah.
child, and that was at a 4.2.
Yeah, so no, thank you.
Actually, I had one other question. With the 236 responses, how many, what's the total number, the percentage of responses?
98.
94%.
Awesome,
94.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for allowing us to come and talk about our pillar. It's an opportunity for us to really highlight and showcase the work that the whole district is doing, and thank you for your support. So thinking about the next 30 days in particular, we are excited about our upcoming 90-day rollout, and that is actually scheduled for next week on the 19th, where we will take a deep dive with all of our leaders and take a deep dive in looking at our data, our plans, and our survey results that we have in hand. And so Lisa gave us a little sneak peek into some of those results, and they're showing really positive, which is great. So next week we'll be doing our 90-day rollout, which again is our temperature check on our way to our year-long goal. We're also going to, at that time, really be having our leaders looking at their plans and thinking about, do I maintain, do I adjust, do I adopt, and to keep us on track. I do want to highlight the again, like Lisa said, the conversion of our plans from yellow status to green. And one of the challenges in the student engagement, it didn't move quite as much, and that has proven to be a little bit of a challenge, is to capture that student voice. And so that will be something that we'll definitely be working on, in particular in our 90-day rollout. So again, working with our leaders to create and keep our plans moving forward and taking a deep dive into that data. So that's kind of our next days, our next 30 days. Any questions with regards to that? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Engaged Family and Communities. Maggie Kelly.
All right, good evening, school board. It's great to be here again this evening. So pillar update for Engaged Families and Community. I'm really excited to start to share some data after receiving the results of our parent satisfaction survey. So very excited about that. As Director Shibahara talked about, we started breaking down a little bit of that data in our last pillar committee meeting, but we had really just gotten the data and didn't have some of the breakdowns. So we're still getting more of that data, and the results so far are really exciting. So our goal was to score a 3.88 on the parent engagement survey. That would have been an increase of 0.1. We almost doubled our goal. We got an increase of 0.19 in the spring from the fall. So we scored in the spring survey a 3.97 overall on the parent engagement survey. So we are just very excited, and a tremendous shout out to all of our staff that connected really in powerful and meaningful ways with our families during truly a time when, I know I've said this before, but when the odds were really stacked against us, and they could have just gone status quo during a pandemic and a really difficult time. So we're excited to see these numbers. So some of the wins that were highlighted in this, and then I'll share a couple of barriers that were also highlighted. Our spring survey showed growth in every single statement except for one, which remained stable. So we didn't slide back. We just, that was the highest scoring item, which I'll go into a little bit later, but we just stayed the highest scoring item with that one. So we saw growth in every other area, which is just outstanding. The lowest scoring item in the fall was, I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. That was one statement where a lot of our buildings and departments built intentional plans around addressing that. And I think as a result, we saw a lot of growth there. We went up 0.35, which is a tremendous amount of growth. And again, a reminder that we're trying to get to 5 stars here, and we have a ways to go, but that's what continuous improvement is about. So we are up to a 3.56. And again, a lot of growth in that area. It is still the lowest scoring item. And I don't want that to be discouraging to our staff because we did see so much growth. I think if anything, to me, that reinforces the fact that we were right where we needed to be with our focus, because we have a lot of growth in that area and a lot of room to close that gap. So excited to continue that work, and clearly the action plans that we've put in place are working. We have evidence of that. Our second lowest scoring item in the fall was I received positive communication about my child from the school. This is such a fun one with staff sending home postcards. I've seen the cutest postcards from the middle school. I've seen teachers get on the phone with parents and talk about how great their kiddo did in school today. So this is just a really exciting one-on-one connection. And that one had tremendous amount of growth. It scored a 3.81, and that was a growth of 0.58. So wow, just really blew that growth out of the water. That's outstanding, and I think that can all be attributed to the outstanding work of our teachers and paras and people in the buildings intentionally reaching out to families, and I just love seeing that. Our highest scoring item remains my family is treated with respect at this school, scored a 4.18. Again, that's the one where we just remain stable on that one. But I love that that is still the highest scoring item because that is a core tenet of what we believe in this district, that everyone should be respected. And the second highest scoring item is one that moved up, and it is now, my child has the necessary classroom supplies and equipment for effective learning. And I think this one is a tremendous win to celebrate as well, and we get to celebrate a little bit outside of the classroom because our nutrition services, our technology department, and our transportation department did an outstanding job of impacting that statement during wildfires and distance learning and a massive 750 square mile district of people spread out all over the place. For an area that has this little Wi-Fi and internet connection, to say my kid has the supplies they need to learn during a pandemic and distance learning is incredible, and I think they can't receive enough praise for that. It grew 0.35, so really exciting, and want to give them a big shout out. Some of the barriers that we did come across was that overall participation was lower than in the fall. We communicated probably more thoroughly than in the fall because the fall was not ideal times with the fire and some of those things, so we communicated it more, but we did still see less participation. We saw 478 families take this survey, and that is down 78 families. We also did more engagement with our Spanish-speaking community. We did see a few more Spanish-speaking families take the survey than in the fall, but that is something that we really need to focus on next time around. I think one thing is that our families are very tired right now, and I think I could attribute it to that in part, but also this is a great learning opportunity. As I mentioned in last board meeting, we saw more participation at our secondary level, which is very unusual. Usually we see it at the elementary level. So I'm looking forward to, in the 90-day huddle, kind of asking them, and in rounding as well, what did you do that worked for you guys? Because at the elementary level, we remained pretty low on that participation. I think one great thing about rounding and connecting with others is learning from what others were doing so we can bring that success to other areas that are lagging a little bit. So that's one barrier that we need to address. Another one is I feel like a lot of people move their action plans green after they got the results of this survey. I would love to see more leading measures so that we're not as dependent on this survey data. That we have leading measures like rounding from secretaries, that we're hardwiring that practice into our secretaries, that we have more pulse checks going out, that we're doing focus groups, interviews. We have a lot of tools in our toolkit that we can utilize in the future so that we are not solely dependent on this one survey. And especially when we're reaching about a third of our families, I want to make sure that we expand that to hear from the families that might not be taking these surveys. So that is one goal that I really want to hit hard in the fall. And then our improvements in action, all 14 action plans are in progress or complete. As of today, 11 of those are in the green, so they are just remaining steady on their action plan. And as I said, a lot of them went green after getting the results of this survey that verified all the hard work that has been working. So we have 3 plans left that are in the yellow, so working to get them across that finish line and see what they need. Parent and staff rollouts are being prepared. We have a short runway for that as we approach the end of the year, but I think it's really important that we let parents know that their input is valuable so that we can increase participation in the future and that we genuinely take this and build action plans off of it. And then additionally, I want to celebrate the heck out of the staff to keep their motivation up during a truly exhausting time because as you can see from their numbers, the actions that they committed to really, really did make a difference. And this is their first year of it. It's our second year, but this is their first year, and I think they should be celebrated and applauded for all the work they did. And then lastly, we're having our 90-day huddle and the survey rollouts, so I anticipate that we'll see some plan adjustments come out of this. I shared our highest and lowest scoring items district-wide, but they may look a little bit different from building to building. They're mostly aligned. We see pretty consistent high and low scores, but there are a couple buildings where the bottom scores differ a little bit. So different buildings might have different plans, and that's totally okay. Different groups of parents have different needs. So excited to support the adjustments that come out of that. Any questions about this part before I move on to May Communications? Okay. So our May Communications report, one thing I want to focus on first off is COVID-19 updates. As COVID-19 really impacts the Estacada area, it is just continues to be crucial that we are still stepping on the gas when it comes to communications. We're not getting lax about this. We're continuing to remind our families and our staff of these best practices that can keep everyone safe. So some of the actions that we have done within the past month, we created and distributed a quarantine FAQ in English and Spanish. We noticed some, common questions as more families were experiencing quarantines. Things like, does my kid's sibling need to quarantine along with them? So, as we were getting this feedback from secretaries, we compiled a quarantine FAQ. And I was just talking with Leticia, and she said she was on the phone with a very anxious Spanish-speaking family, and she just pulled up the FAQ and read pretty much almost word for word. They asked almost every question on that FAQ. So I think it helps ensure that we have aligned communication and that our families have the resources they need to guide them through a really tricky time. We are also hosting a bilingual Facebook Live next Monday. I plan to start promoting that tomorrow. We will be mostly talking about quarantine, COVID, and safety protocols. I know there's still a lot of questions as it impacts the Estacada area. So mark your calendars, Monday at 6 o'clock. It will be another panel session with Superintendent Carpenter, Executive Operations Director Mike Ware, and the principals at each of the buildings. So very excited for that opportunity to connect with families. We are busy reviewing and adjusting our COVID-19 dashboard. Wanted to make sure as cases heighten that we are verifying that information and making sure it's as accurate as possible. It's getting updated every 24 hours, sometimes a little more often. And we did make an adjustment that we have, I believe it's called live updates now, where you can read a little bit sentence. It's kind of like a Twitter feed of, okay, on May 13th, we had 48 kids from CRE come out of quarantine. So that when you see these numbers dramatically adjusting, numbers dropping, you kind of don't think, is that a data error? You can look at that and see where those number adjustments are coming from to help our community understand a little bit better. So we did make that adjustment, and I'd love to collect more feedback on that. We are averaging 4.15 safety messages to family and staff each week. That's up from, I believe it was 3.92 last month. So we're hitting the ground hard on reminding people of those things again. And then Superintendent Carpenter might talk about this a little bit more, but we are bringing in a third party just to review and audit some of our safety protocols. We are very confident in our safety protocols, and this is completely voluntary. We just want another set of eyes to help verify and give us any suggestions for improvements on safety protocols. So I'm excited to transparently communicate those results as well. And then lastly, I'll go quickly through this. Our multimedia position is beginning next week. Excited to get them into board meetings. You'll be seeing a lot of videos from them. Prepping for graduation. And last thing that I will bring up, because I think this is important, I got the news yesterday that mailers are hot off the presses and they delivered yesterday from the faraway land of Portland, so they should be in your mailboxes today, tomorrow, the next day. So very excited about that. Any additional questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. Moving on, we have buildings and facilities report. Mike Blair.
Okay, good evening, Board of Directors. For our pillar update and report on up-to-date buildings and facilities, I'll start with this first slide. As we've talked about many times, our goal is a score of 3.90 on the My School is Clean question on the student engagement survey. We did just get back that spring survey data. Unfortunately, it did not get the updated score in here, so I look forward to reporting that out next month. I want to go into a couple of the rounding themes that we're seeing over the last few months. Unfortunately, our last two pillar committee meetings have not been able to happen, so we've been able to adjust a little bit. But the evidence indicates that our work is creating improvement, and we'll talk about some of the wins and the data here a little bit later to support that claim there. Student voice has been very, very beneficial to our leaders. We've pulse surveyed a number of our high school and middle school students, and their voice has been active in telling us what they want to see in our buildings in terms of improvement at the high school, at the middle school, and going forward. So our building leaders and the other department leaders have been utilizing that data to make progress and make improvement. And then we've had some creative thinking on implementing action plans through our student services department and our curriculum and instruction department. So very, very successful. Again, this is the opportunity for us to think outside the box, not always go down the lane that we want to, and think how can we indirectly or directly support this pillar, which again in student services and curriculum instruction is not as easy as facilities, custodial, nutrition services, or our transportation department. So it's been really fun to work with those leaders. Some wins. First win is that beautiful baseball field. Second win that I'd like to highlight here is one of the things that I think was asked earlier is this pillar work that we're doing. How is it going? How is it progressing? This is evidence right here that this evidence-based leadership is really filtering through all of our system because our transportation coordinator decided to do an open forum with high school students to see how they feel on the bus and whether they feel their bus is clean. To my knowledge, I don't think we've done much of that in the past, so this was a first step. And I really commend her, Sarah Lawson, our transportation coordinator, for doing this. First question was asked, do you feel safe on the bus? 85% of the students said yes, they do feel safe on our bus. Second question, is your bus clean? 85% of the students asked said yes, our bus is clean. So again, there's some progress, data right there that's showing that her action plans and efforts in this particular pillar is working. We're keeping that needle moving. You've probably heard me say that a couple times. So. Another win here is the strategic action plans in progress. As you can see, 13 of 13 are in the green. Again, we have strong data and evidence to show this through our HR department, through our facilities department, and to our middle school, our elementaries, all the data through our pulse checks, and hopefully when we see our spring survey, shows that what we're doing is working. Again, I'll just kind of keep highlighting that, and it's a great success, and really excited to roll this out in the 90-day huddle. Some barriers, how do we keep that needle moving, right? We had a really good push early on, and then in the spring, right before pulse checks, and then we've kind of dropped down a little bit. So working with our leaders on just keeping this at the forefront, because right now, keeping our buildings clean, keeping them safe is very, very important. It's always important, but as we look at reopening our schools for the new school year, keeping our schools open for this school year, we want to make sure that this is top of mind and this is out there. And we know it's not very hard. The very, very simple fact of just putting pictures in our communication is seeming like it's working. So we want to continue that. And then continuity of service. We have some openings in our maintenance and custodial department. We want to make sure that we can fill those. We're working with our HR department and our facilities coordinator to get those filled as soon as we can. So I talked about some improvement in action, some more data. We pulse surveyed our EHS Youth Advisory Council, a number of 10 students that are a part of this group. Our principal here asked them the question, is my school clean? 10 out of 10 said yes. Is my school safe? 10 out of 10 said yes. We pulse surveyed our athletics, our student athletes. And it's kind of hard to see here, but the first one is the athletic facilities and grounds feel safe to me. Average mean score 4.30 as a yes. When I come to practice, the grounds and facilities are in good condition. 75% of the students say yes. That's the blue one. And then finally, the athletic facilities are clean, 3.83. So still a good score, but some progress or some improvement needed in that area. So great opportunity for our high school and our athletics department to work together collaboratively with our facilities to see what we can do. And then again, our last pulse check, which is in April with our middle school. My school is clean, 4.58. Average say yes, and a 4.24 comes out to that number there. So again, we're making progress through the data that we're seeing. Next 30 days in our action plan, supporting leaders to adjust, adopt, and abandon their action plans when we do that rollout. I don't see a lot of abandoning going on, maybe some tweaks, maybe some adoptions, but what we're doing is working based on the data again. So we're gonna just keep moving forward, and I wanna find out different ways that we can be creative and help support our leaders to communicate up-to-date building facilities and collaborating on what projects that we can do throughout our district. Any questions on that pillar report?
When we look at Mike, the improvement in action evidence slide, so we've got the EHS youth, that's 10 out of 10. Are these, we just have, do we have different scales being used here?
No, it's the same scale.
Still, so the athletic facilities is 4.3 out of 10.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It is a different scale because the principal just asked the simple question to the 10 individuals. So we didn't take an average mean score.
Okay, that's on me. So, but the other ones are out of 5,
Yeah,
right?
out of 5,
Okay,
correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Okay, I'll transition to buildings and facility improvement projects. At the Estacada Middle School, we've done a number of little projects. We started with installing some new fire doors. We're improving the safety and life safety of our building. We've added some touchless bottle fill stations, again, adding to that COVID response and more convenience. So we're very excited for those 2 projects to be completed.
Mike, can I intervene just a second? Go back to. I just want to give a compliment to the school district. That doesn't look like a building that was built in 1937.
It's a very beautiful.
I mean, it looks really nice.
It's our oldest building, and I'll be honest, it's probably the least amount of need building because we put a lot of work into it, and it's a stunning building. So. River Mill Elementary, we are completing some additional camera installs. We have 3 that we're going to be doing. We've had some vandalism. I think I spoke to that last month. And so we have 1 installed, and we'll be installing 2 more over the next week. We've added some updating fencing, and we expect to hear back on our seismic grant at the end of this month. So hopefully we'll get some good news on that, and we can start talking about what that looks like over the next year's summer, not this year's summer, unfortunately. But we want to get that grant first. Estacada High School, we've added some ADA access to our greenhouse. That's the middle picture. We had some issues with just accessing that area, so we added a walking path to our track. We had some pavers there, but at the track lip and where the pavers met, there was a bit of a lip, so we added that ADA access for easy access. And then we are installing a new dishwasher set at the kitchen, and that's a design of what it will look like, and so that will be happening over the summer. Very excited for that project because it will increase efficiencies for our kitchen and our cooks. Clackamas River Elementary, this one is, so what you're looking at here in the far left is over one of our pods. And in between each of the windows is that panel that you can kind of see there. If they were resealed or when they were sealed last, they were not sealed properly. So we noticed that when there was wind-driven rain that we were getting leaks in our pods. Our facilities team went up there to take a look, and they took off the middle panel, and in the middle picture is what you see. There's no barrier, it's just wood, and there's gaps. On the far right-hand side where I tried to take a picture, you see that looks that's just straight into our pod. And so you can put your hand up and feel air coming in. So we realized quickly that that's why we're getting leaks, because it was improperly installed. Our facilities team did it within house, started working window by window to fix this issue, and we're almost there to getting that done. Not a very quick job because it's kind of labor intensive, but again, another finding from this building that we are continually trying to repair as we go through the school years.
Does everything appear to be structurally sound?
Yes. When we completed that structure analysis, I think about a year and a half ago, the results came back that structurally it is sound. The cracking is due to improper pouring of concrete and the improper curing time. North Complex acres, 7 acres, we did get a timber appraisal and a land appraisal. I'm happy to talk about that in a minute if you'd like. Engineering on our roadway, we've started working on with an engineer so we can get a spec drawn for a gravel roadway to get it prepped. Again, this would be phase 1 of just a gravel roadway for people who are using the facilities, for baseball youth. And so we need to get the engineering plans first, give it out to the bidders who want to contract or want to bid out on the project so they can properly install a gravel road. We're working with some local support for concession and restroom installation, so we're very excited for that opportunity and collaboration. And now we're prepping for our lawn equipment. We just went through and got our irrigation ready. If you've been around the facilities or the grounds early in the morning, you'll see the irrigation is running and up and going. So we start at midnight and it runs for every 2 hours, I believe, throughout the night. So we're very excited. It's very cool to see all those sprinklers up. Back to the timber appraisal real quick. We did get an appraisal, and we got two. The second one came in at $36,000 at a 50% 50 to the hauler, the logger, and then 50 to the district. That's kind of a standard rate. The wood is not ideal wood. They said it'd go to RSG type wood. And so we got that knowing that that'd be about $18,000 net for the district. Land appraisal, we were able to get that land appraisal pretty quickly. There should be some more assessment done. Initial assessments is about a $400,000 net to the district. If there were some adjustments needed made, they did put another number of $300,000. The appraisal did say that they would like to have some more time to do some more assessments on different scenarios of what that land could be used for, then give us some more accurate numbers. But baseline $400,000 is what we got from our appraisal. And then finally, we were going to talk about some SR3 projects. I got 30 seconds, and we're going to talk about some access point installations. That is on an action item later today. We've talked about the need for that and Wi-Fi service connectivity, access control, a major safety increase and enhancement for our district. Has been a big project on the bond list. We're getting ready for that. Generator for continuity of service and power and internet, and we'll be talking about portables as well later today. Any questions? I made it.
On the North Complex slide, engineering on the roadway, we're talking about the road that's going to run east-west from the bus barn.
Yes, sir.
Right, so it's not the roadway that connects.
No, it's
on the city.
our future driveway roadway. Yep.
That's what I thought, just making sure.
Do we have an IGA with the city on the on the field maintenance? Because I remember when we entered this whole idea, that was one of the keystone parts.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. We just finalized the last review of it with our district. So Christina Weinhardt had taken the last view. We're ready to send it over to the city to start that conversation. As we're starting to water it, we need to figure that out. We need to make some decisions because it's going to start growing very quickly.
Any other questions?
We're also going to need to anticipate the finalization of the fencing as well, because there's going to be some spots that becomes parkish that's available to the public versus spots that we want to secure off to make sure that the public's not available to our kids.
With the track? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I had a quick question. I know you and I talked briefly about being over by the Great Barn and the hydro seed that's there, and I don't know anything about lawn care if you looked at my lawn, but, so my question is there needed anything to be redone to that area because of the way the hydro seed's coming in or not coming in?
It's hard to tell at this moment. We do have a low spot in an area that we're going to be working with a contractor to install some French drain, so we have proper drainage. As of right now, our grounds crew has said it looks great, looks fine, and it's a little early right now. As we start watering and seeing if there's patches and whatnot, we have a good partnership with the hydro seeder, and they're willing to come back out and support us if we need to do more.
That's great, thank you.
I was going to ask about the track. Now that we're into it, 6 months or whatever it's been, are we seeing that that's being cared for by the community as far as the bikes and that sort of thing? Are they staying off of it, or are they respecting the rules, or?
From what I've seen, observation, and talking with the principal and our athletic director, yes. I have not seen a lot of people using it in terms of with bikes or rollerblades or strollers. Our community has been respecting that asset. We do have a good amount of use, which is great. It's great to see our community out here using it. But the track is still, again, 6-8 months into it, really good condition. No issues yet to speak about. And I think that we haven't had any major issues with that as well.
And then as far as ongoing maintenance of that, just to make sure we're staying on top of it, is it like a yearly thing that the track company would come out, or every couple of years?
If I recall, and we'd have to remember my notes, but I think it's every year or maybe 2 years that they would come out. There's not a lot of maintenance that needs to happen as long as we're taking care of it and not driving things over it. But the track installer will be supporting us in that.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Director Shivahara, please put me down for $100.
Oh, look at that. Nicely
All
done.
right, I'll find you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Finance and Accountability Report. We have Ryan Carpenter on there, but I have a feeling we have a new person that's going to lead this.
I would like to
Christina?
introduce my designee for this presentation, Christina Wine.
Thank you. First, I want to talk about the financial pillar. In my first, this is my 4th week, and I have not yet started my work on my financial pillar. I will begin after the 90-day. I'm very excited to work on that, so hoping you'll get to hear from me about the financial pillar, probably a little bit next board meeting. Talk about the revenue for the district as of April 30th. You're looking here at our revenue, you're looking at our budget versus our year-to-date revenue. This is as of April 30th. As of April 30th, we had collected $34,822,021. Some items that I want to point out on here. First is the local property tax. You will see that we do have higher revenue and local property tax than our budgeted. And that's kind of an abnormal thing that is really a COVID thing. Due to the stimulus and a lot of other things, the state did receive more income tax across the board throughout the state. So that is not projected to be the same next year. It is more than likely a one-year thing, but I do want to point that out. And then our state school fund, we're at 97%, but with our May payment, we will be over our budgeted amount. Any questions about the revenue?
So I recall state school fund and property taxes kind of offsetting each other.
Yep.
So, but what it looks like here is they're not. The state school fund is not being reduced because we receive more in tax. And so that again is just kind of a one-time
Yeah, correct.
COVID year type of a thing. Because am I correct in that?
It is offset, but we do still are projected higher in both areas than budgeted.
Perfect. Thank you.
This is a graph, or a pie chart, looking at our revenue by source, and just showing you that our state funding is 67.7% of our revenue source. And then there's our local sources up at the top, that's our property taxes, and that's 20.2%.
I think that's an important pie chart to see, because I hear a lot of it, or a lot of people in the community say, why don't we just open our schools up full on and tell the state to go do their own thing? And that 67.7% is the key there, because they're the one who are funding this operation.
Yeah.
Well, and I think another key point too, when we think about bond or conversations around money that's needed, and how that attributes to, I pay a lot in property taxes already, but again, only 20% of our budget comes from that side, so
right.
There's a lot more to it.
Very good points. Now looking at our expenditures, you'll see here a lot of information. I'm going to mostly look at our second to last column there, our total projected. And looking down that, I want to first go over our total expenditures by major function. is $35,454,897. And in looking at, I want to look at a couple different areas. First, the 2000 level, you'll see that we're projected to be over our 100%, which is why you'll see later in our board action item that I'm requesting that we do an adjustment based upon our actual expenditures. And the same thing in the 4000s, we did not budget originally at the 4000s, but due to ESSER funds, we will need, we did spend some money in the 4000s. So I'm again asking for an adjustment to our budget for that. And then looking down at the bottom of you'll see our by object, and the one in the bracket are 300s, 400s, and 500s. It is at 112%. But again, we do have the option to move our budget around by objects. We just have to stay within budget within the appropriation. And the 300s, 400s, and 500s, they kind of move around and balance each other out. Any questions on that? Okay, the next one is a pie chart, and this is by major object. This is projected by major object, and you'll see there that our salaries and our associated payroll costs are majority of our budget, and also our purchase services. And I want to note here that this year we did move our subs to the ESS, and so we will no longer be paying them directly, so you won't see them in the 100s and 200s. You'll be seeing them under purchase services, so that will continue to be a little bit of a higher number. So those three numbers right there, the 100s, 200s, and 300s, those are contracted costs. Those are really, we don't have any flexibility in our budgeting of that. We don't get to choose if we have someone provide services to our students. We're obligated to do that. We have contracts. So really our only wiggle room, our movement is within the 400s and 600s. So I just wanted to point that out.
Question, Christina?
Yeah.
Just, and this could be another time, but knowing that we've moved those subs and that just happened a couple months ago, right, when we approved that?
Yeah.
I don't see an increase in the 300 purchase services for the upcoming budget, which is a little concerning knowing that we're going to increase that.
Yeah, again, though, we do have the flexibility that we don't have to appropriate by object.
Sure.
So I will more than likely be able to
We're just gonna
move
move it
from
later.
our sub-budget down
Okay.
to the 300s.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Good question. Next, I want to talk about enrollment. So enrollment for April 30th, overall, we are down 3 students. And that is, I'm going to go through, Clackamas River is increased 2 students. River Mill is down 2 students. The middle school stayed the exact same, and the high school is down 3 students. And again, this is just our schools, not charter, and we're at 1,746 students.
CRE principal Christina Anderson wanted me to let the board know too, because we've always been talking about River Mill and the growth, that Clackamas River grew 2 students this month.
Good job, Christina.
But
And then-
River Mill dropped by 2, so did we just ship 2 kids over there? or
We
what?
have a new problem.
And then here's our bar graph right here showing you the trends, and you'll know, as you know, that we normally drop down towards the end of the school year, but this year we're staying pretty even. So with everything COVID related, it's actually, we're benefiting, so just want to point that out. And that's all I have. Any questions?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our superintendent's report.
Thank you, and I sure have appreciated having Christina as a teammate. It's just been awesome, the 4 weeks that she's been here. And imagine, coming into the middle of the year and seeing the finances and all of that piece of it. And she really has just stepped up and done some incredible things. It's like there we go. I do want to just take a quick moment to praise the great resilience of our employees. We've experienced another significant loss. And our professionals, our adult professionals who work for Estacada Schools are amazing, and we are grieving the loss of our colleague while still continuing to teach the kids in our classroom. And I just want to echo the sentiments of the Estacada Board of Directors in saying that we recognize that these are really tough times for our school district and our employees, and they continue to each and every single day report to duty and be ready to serve our kids with love and compassion. And I just wanted to recognize that because they've been incredible during yet another very extreme challenge for the Estacada School District in our school year. I also want to mention too how great the parent satisfaction results are that Maggie Kelly represented. In a pandemic year, what our parents are telling us is they are more satisfied this spring than when we started the fall year with. And that's saying a lot of things, but mainly the tremendous great work that's occurring each and every day between teacher and kid, teacher and parent, school building and parent, and the overall communications of the district, and really our adjustments each and every single day to try to meet the needs of our families as well as our kids. And by no means are we perfect, and we've had a lot of ups and downs with different families, both specifically and family groups as a whole, but our Estacada School District has made adjustments, and it's great to see this feedback reflected back to us that we're doing the things we need to do to improve schools for our community. Maggie also mentioned the asking of a third party to review our protocols. Interestingly enough, as this employee engagement survey was released, and the board has really the first official copy, we have not communicated this yet with our employees. Our principals in the next couple weeks will be rolling out these results to each and every employee. But nonetheless, what the employees are telling us is that in general, things are safe and our protocols are safe. The number one score inside the employee engagement survey is my principal supervisor demonstrates a genuine concern for my welfare. That's our highest scoring in the entire district at 4.41. 58% of our employees are scoring that in the top box, meaning that it's a 5 out of 5, which is the highest scores we've ever received in this specific category. But I do believe that if our adults were not feeling safe and not feeling cared for, this would be represented in this specific score. And so the data that we're looking at here is really telling of the hard work that our leaders and our operations team are doing to ensure the compliance of safety. Our parents are also telling us that they feel safe sending their child to school to the tune of 83%, I believe. And our students at 76% believe that their school is a safe place and believe that their school is a clean place. So the data that we're looking at is telling us that our protocols and the Ready School Safe Learner guidance that we're required to follow is having a positive impact. That being said, I still want to give our school district the opportunity to be the best that it can be and the safest that it can be. And so I am going to be asking the Clackamas ESD to come out to just be a fresh set of eyes, to take a look at our protocols, to be in our classrooms, to see what that looks like, to see what our transitions look like from classroom to music room, from classroom to PE, parent pickup, etc., to see what we are doing well, as well as make some opportunities to continue to improve as we finish this school year strong and move to a next year. And so I wanted to communicate that, and I'm excited to bring the unedited results to both the board of directors and our employees as we continue to work together to keep our schools open and ensure the safety of all who are a part of this process.
Ryan, on that, is that something, a new service that they're providing, or is that something we're just asking them to do and provide that countywide, or how does that look?
You know, it's a service that has never been done before, but as we just kind of take a deeper look at it, we were one of the first schools to open. We were one of the first schools to execute the plan. There's a lot of school districts who are asking us for all of our protocols and procedures, and so a lot of folks are looking to us to lead this charge, but we don't really have anyone telling us where we could get better or where we can improve. And, as a result of, a spike in Estacada, so our cases are rising, our quarantines are rising, how we quarantine students is impacting families in different ways. I would just like a fresh perspective to see if there's anything we could do to improve so that we're meeting the needs of our employees, our kids, and our community in general. I'm confident in our plan. I do feel like what we're doing is good. I just want someone else to still take a look at that and make sure that that is in fact the case.
Great, thank you.
Two more announcements. As you all saw, the CDC, which is a federal program, they ultimately released today that if you are fully vaccinated, masks or face coverings are no longer required in indoor and outdoor settings. Also, social distancing is no longer required in indoor and outdoor settings, with several caveats. So don't take my word that I'm speaking in generalizations of what the CDC said. That being said, about an hour ago, the Oregon Department of Education declared that the Ready School Safe Learner documents will not reflect the changes that the CDC just presented today. So what that means is students and employees will still be required to wear face masks on campus during the school day. Even if, though, the Ready School Safe Learners guidance didn't change that at the state level, we still have contractual obligations with our collective bargaining agreements. And in our teachers' collective bargaining agreement and our classified collective bargaining agreement, it mandates that all employees will still wear masks and students must still wear masks. So as changes occur, I just wanted to communicate with the board that contractually we will still need to remain in face masks throughout the course of the school year. And that could become problematic for us as the year comes on and as we get used to not wearing face masks outside of the school setting. I just want to try to communicate that as much as possible, that we're locked into that until this school year is over.
And so, just to clarify that, that's through the end of the 2020-21 school year.
That's right.
So
June, whatever our last day of school is,
Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
And the last contract day for employees. Okay. And then last but not least, I just want to thank the Executive Board of Directors. Today we had a great employee forum where we hosted roughly 85 employees. We had the opportunity to talk about our safety protocols and talk about our employee engagement and their feedback back to the district about its safety and protocols. But given just the tough circumstances, I appreciated your support today in allowing me to support our employees through a cup of coffee and just support the self-care and the mental health that we can do for our great employees. And so thank you for that. And it was well received. I've received a lot of thank you cards and it had your name on it for those of you who supported that. So I really appreciate that. For your calendar, if you're available next Wednesday, I believe that's the 19th of May, we will be conducting really our first very big 90-day rollout of all of the things that we've been working on with our pillar. We've been gearing towards a 90-day cycle. As you can see here, the surveys are starting to come in, the data is starting to come in, and we're excited to celebrate our wins and make adjustments for the next 90 days to get to that overall annual goal of where we're at. And in many cases, we are currently above that goal threshold and making meaningful movement. But we've got 90 more days to go. So this is that opportunity for us to tweak that and make those adjustments. The 90-day huddle is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I know that that's a tricky time. And so it's just, if you're available, I would love to have you here. It's virtual. It will not be in person. And so if you're able to make it, I would love to have any board of director join. Just please let us know in advance, because if there are 4 or more, we need to post that to make sure that it's an open workshop to the public.
Would that be something that we could join, maybe bounce in and out of?
Absolutely.
During that day?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. That is your superintendent report. Thank you, Vice Chair Rydell, for being a part of the Clackamas ESD Budget Committee to have an Estacada representative in as many things as we can is advantageous for the Estacada School District. So I really appreciate the time you're investing to help be an ambassador for us.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Carpenter. Next up on the agenda, we have reports and presentations. After that, we have a discussion on this very piece of paper we have on our table, the employee engagement survey results. My first question is, how many people do we have that are actually being surveyed?
236.
How many people do we have that are being surveyed on this?
We have 239 total employees. 236 took this survey. It's the greatest participation we've ever had.
That's amazing.
What it's telling me is that this is starting to become hardwired in our system, and we've demonstrated to our employees that we take action from this, we share the results of this, and we co-own the work inside of this. So I'm very pleased with the participation.
I apologize. If I learned how to read, I would see that 236 is in the top right corner.
Correct.
So with that, let's dive into this.
Yeah, you bet. And I won't take too much of our time because I'd love for you to kind of look into it. And in the pillar meetings, we'll go through it. And we probably will need to have our own workshop at some point for your superintendent, for you all to kind of give a mid-year check on your superintendent of how things are going with the process. But that being said, we did score a 4.18, which is a 0.11 improvement from the fall. So again, even through some of the most difficult and challenging times, and I'm going to call them out loud: wildfire, ice storm, a death inside our community and inside of that piece of it, and numerous operational changes throughout the process to welcome kids, to send kids away, to welcome kids, and then welcome kids even more, I think is really quite impressive. So much so, in fact, that the overall district score of all of our student education partners, which is 100, not 100, it's hundreds of school districts throughout the United States. Right now, the Estacada School District scores in the 70th percentile amongst all those other Studer school districts around the country. So we're in that top 30% of school districts who are currently doing this evidence-based leadership work. 4 out of 10 employees, and I'm sure that can be reduced to 2/5, 2 out of 5 employees are scoring the Estacada School District a 5. I'm also pleased because I think anything over 4 is excellent. And you can see that the principal and the supervisor is well beloved at all school buildings, as well as all departments. This is our transportation, food services, and custodial and maintenance inside of that as well. So fantastic news there. If you skip to the superintendent, again, really everybody in the district that's a leader is the superintendent. I can't meet with every single person every single day and share the message of what the superintendent and or the district is doing. I must rely on our leaders to share and own the message of the work that we're doing together. And so you can see here some considerable growth and gains. And of course, you don't have last falls there, but I have that ready to go. But if you can see that in the superintendent one, the 3 that we were really working on was manages district finances effectively, and sorry, I'm trying to get up the fall one as well. Yeah, there it is. Manages the district's finances effectively. That was a 3.75 in the fall. It's now a 3.96, so we saw very considerable gains with that work. We also worked on the superintendent makes decisions that are in the best interest of the school district in the fall. That was our lowest scoring one at 3.4. That's increased to 3.93. In fact, that's the #1 most improved score throughout the entire survey. And again, it's not necessarily credit to what Ryan Carpenter, the superintendent, is doing. That's great communication throughout the organization. And it's our building leaders and principals and directors who are cascading the communication and supporting the work that's going on throughout the system. Open and honest communication, we have taken a big whack at that over the whole course of the year. There's been a lot of changes, and we've tried to make ourselves as available as possible to continue to have two-way communication with our employees. Last year, or last fall, that was a 3.53, and that now has increased to the two-way communication, C3, a 3.94. So again, we saw considerable growth, but what's neat here is that top box, the amount of employees who scored that a 5. Last fall, that was 25% of our employees scored that a 5. It's now almost at 40%. So we're seeing growth even with people who agreed with us. That agreement is getting stronger and stronger. The last piece that I just want to share before we move to page 3, this is an anomaly according to Studer Education, and I think it's the greatest win that I see as I analyze this as serving as your superintendent, and that is C4. I have a clear understanding of the mission and goals of my school district at 4.41, and over half of our employees score that at 5. I don't know another organization that could tell you that they have a clear understanding of what that mission, vision, and value is of their organization, their company, or their school district. And so for us to do this work, we're only 2 years into this work. We're still just trying to hardwire some of these activities and behaviors, primarily at the leadership levels. But our attachment to executing the strategic plan, I'm very pleased with this. This is tied for the #1 highest score in the survey, and I think that's pretty impressive to the great work that we're doing, and our mission, vision, and values are reflecting throughout the process. So you can see on page 3, the top 5 of the survey from our employees. Again, 94% of our employee workforce filled this out. And you can see the bottom 5, but as you look at this bottom 5, it is up considerably from where we were at just 7 months ago into the fall. And that's during a very, very difficult year. So I'm pleased, but I cannot wait to get more feedback and start all over again with these improvement cycles, because it never ends. So now it's your turn to discuss.
It's all really great info.
Yep.
Any direct questions?
Yeah, just a question about, you had mentioned throughout the year the understanding of the survey. So do you think there's a better understanding of what the top box means to the employee when they're selecting those numbers, and how that's what's reported out on this report as well?
I do. I wouldn't say it's necessarily as clear as some of the mean scores that we're spitting out. I think that I know that our principals, and as they roll this out, like we're mentioning top box, but only when it's like noticeable. We're not really talking too much about the top box outside of that. And so I don't think we're quite there yet, but when opportunities arise, we do talk about 4 out of 10 score us a 5 or et cetera, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, a couple of questions, Ryan. You said we had 239 employees and 236 took it?
Yes.
Well, that's 98.7% participation.
Well, then I think Lisa Akins was more accurate than I. Someone was saying 98%. Yeah.
So just making sure, because that is a big difference, 94 to 98.
Here's where I messed up. When I was presenting this, I looked at like superintendent makes best interest.
Okay.
That is 226, which would be that 94%.
Gotcha. Okay. And I do think, I think this is within the normal realms from what I've seen from participation, but it's interesting as you go through each question, roughly 4% of the respondents don't answer any one question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty consistent as you go down the count.
Yeah.
It's all right there, 226, 227, 225, 228.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see from Studer, is that good or is it bad? I don't think it's bad. It could be really good.
Yeah.
But it'd just be interesting to see what they see as they do a lot of these surveys.
Yeah.
I was surprised it was so consistent, because usually what you'll see is you'll see a question that a group of employees doesn't think applies to them, and you'll see a big fall off. And so that it could be a big point in the right direction, that the way the questions are worded are really, really good, so that it applies to everybody.
Yeah.
And to your point of the superintendent, again, same participation rate. So,
Yeah.
so I don't think there's a gap there of who they think they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it'd just be interesting to get Studer's take on it. My gut tells me those are pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
And if they are, then that's another one to celebrate. And if they aren't, then how do we change it?
You bet. Thank you.
Yep.
The question C4 is kind of an interesting one. I mean, it's like the most basic question as you go to school every day, like a clear understanding of what you're doing, the mission and goals of the district, or whether it's, for me, building houses. I understand that I'm doing that every day. But for 4.41 to be a great score, it kind of makes you wonder like what other organizations are doing that are missing the boat. Because if you don't know what you're coming to do every day, how the heck are you going to accomplish it and achieve what you're supposed to do?
Yep.
I mean, it's just, when you break it down in that manner, it's just kind of interesting.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing that I would say, we're 2 years into this. Oops, sorry. We're 2 years into this, into our strategic plan. And what I've seen in the past is because we spend so much time just getting the info out there, you get a really high response. And the farther you get into it, at times employees can get farther away from, you know, I took it at face value, but now I'm questioning a little bit more of it. So it's one to keep a really close eye on. To see any incremental drops in that. We've got a systemic problem of a disconnect there.
Absolutely.
Of either not continuing to drive the message, or the message that we're driving doesn't connect with the actual plan for the average employee.
You got it. Yep. And I think an even simpler way of saying that, which goes back to Chair Wheeler's remarks too, is this is an organization right now that you can obviously see all arrows are pointing in the same direction, where I think a lot of different organizations that you go to, there's a lot of arrows in a lot of different directions. Yeah.
One other question that doesn't pertain to this, and aside from the events that have happened in the last week or so, as you walk into any given building, how does the morale and the non-tangible stuff feel that we can't put on paper? Does it feel like people are genuinely happy to be here and excited that they're back in the classroom and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I would argue yes. We've got a very positive and happy workforce throughout the process, including our bus drivers and our cooks. Like, they're phenomenal right now. Our folks are tired. I can't not deny that. We've got a very fatigued workforce, and I think it's important to recognize that. But that, at least in my experience, in my emails, as I work with principals, that hasn't compromised the service, and it hasn't compromised how we're treating each other through the process. But we are definitely fatigued. But no, I would say this tells me, and the information that I'm getting, that morale is still pretty solid.
Good. Any other questions over here? You guys are being just soaking all this in? Come on.
So just follow up on that comment there. Are there any plans for the district, I mean, to celebrate the employees, to help try and alleviate some of that fatigue and weariness? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I mean, you have a school year to complete, but I don't know. I was just curious.
Yes, in a couple of ways. One of the things we're trying to do, like, for example, our Starbucks today is an example. The employee gift is an example through the appreciation processes. I do know that our principals and our department directors are trying to, when opportunities exist, to potentially like cancel or postpone meetings so folks can have some self-care or some time to themselves. For example, I know that this Friday, I have authorized Ben Hargrave to allow our teachers, again, still to work, but at the same time, you know, we've canceled all meetings so they can just have an opportunity to be together and to just, you know, be in their classroom. And of course, on Fridays they're virtual, but you know what I mean when it comes to that. So we are trying to provide that, but at the same time, we have an expectation and we have a bunch of benchmarks we're still trying to hit. And so trying to balance that is a challenge for us, yeah. But I don't know if that helps.
No, it does. I mean, those seem appropriate.
Yep. And if other ideas that the board has in ways that we can honor and recognize, please let me know, because I would love to continue to share that with cascade that throughout our organization, because it is a real thing, and we've got to take care of our folks.
I've got some ideas we can talk later.
Great.
I know it wasn't a part of the agenda meeting items. we add something maybe next month or something to talk about school calendar and bell schedules?
Yes.
Or I can ask a question
Yep.
if this is an appropriate time.
I can try my best. I may not have, that's more of a principal
Well, and
level question.
that's mainly my question. So as a school board, we vote on the calendar.
Correct.
Days and start and end times.
Correct.
But as a building, they make the decisions on the bell schedules, class schedules, AB schedules, things
That's
like that.
correct.
So if somebody had feedback and wanted to provide input into that process, they should reach out to their building principals?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, they would be coming in as a community member in that case. We hire, well, you hire me, and then I hire the principals, and the principals have the authority to determine what that looks like. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? One thing that I might just throw out here is, as we approach the end of the year, or get to the end of the year and have a time to take a deep breath, it might be good to see those principals in the school board meeting, whether they show up virtually or actually in person. Just see their faces and just kind of get a recap on the year and highs and lows and things they can do better.
I can, because we've got our big 90-day stuff and we're kind of going to be in transition from one cycle to the next cycle, the next school board meeting might be a good opportunity for them just to give a report.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right, without any further ado, let's jump into hearings of citizens for action items only. None, okay. That brings us to the action items. We've got a consent agenda, a package of one or more items we voted on as a unit. I believe everybody had an opportunity to look over this.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So we got that motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We got a second on that. Do we need discussion on this? Not seeing anybody jumping on the opportunity, so let's go ahead and all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
All right, next is item J, to approve the second reading of OSBA policy LBE and LBEA.
I'll go again. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the second reading of OSBA policies LBE and LBEA.
We have that motion,
A second?
and we got a second. Let's have a little discussion on this.
Sure.
Make sure I'm getting the right one here.
So as Chair Wheeler's looking at that, again, as a reminder, we pulled this out of a consent agenda last month.
2 months ago.
2 months ago, thank you, appreciate that. 2 months ago, so that we could, board members had a more opportunity to read into it, learn more about it, and felt like they could make a more informed decision, and that is why it's back on the agenda this evening. So I guess I would start with, are there any questions regarding policies LBE and LBEA that board members still have before we move to a vote?
Not seeing any? Okay.
Any further discussion then? Anybody wants to add?
Yeah, my only, I don't have any further discussion, just the two are packaged together, and I think that they actually call out two separate specific areas. So we don't need, we can vote on it as a package. I'm fine with it because that's how they're put together.
Okay.
But
Does anybody feel as though they would like to separate them out and vote on them separately?
that was my request.
You are requesting that?
Please.
Okay.
So in that case, we need to vote this down and then redo a motion?
And do two separate motions.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Are we all in agreement on that, Denise? Does that sound?
Yeah.
You're the Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just trying to catch up.
Okay, so in order to vote on those separately, we have a motion and a second to approve both of these. If we wanted to vote on them separately, we need to vote that down, and then we would add an additional motion so that we do them separately. Everybody
Prior
understand?
to voting that down, maybe Director Johnson could clarify a little bit too, that would splitting it up change the vote? Or can you give a better explanation?
Yeah,
or clarification of why having them separate matters?
Yeah, so LBA, or I'm sorry, LBE, by itself just provides guidance on public charter schools and how they're formed. LBEA provides guidance to a school district that they're allowed to approve or deny a student based on their parents' choice to put them in a school. So, and clarity from the prior time when this was presented, this is not based on my request that where I'm employed, but rather a belief that parents' choice is a vital option in education and the need for competition in education. So I think Estacada School District has shown that we bring kids here because we have good things going. We're doing the right things for kids. And so, I would say I've worked with boards in other states. I'd say there's not a time when a public school board would vote this down, because this also guarantees some financial capacity of the district. So I understand the direction we may have to go. From a parent choice standpoint, it's hard for me to believe that this is the right thing to vote yes on for. Does that help?
On the attendance one, the
On the
LBEA.
Yeah. Oh, A, yes. And I wasn't sitting next to them like that. Hope that helps.
And it looks as though this is a revision to a current LBA that's under our policy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because there's a bunch of strike-throughs and highlights.
Yeah, and Vice Chair Rydell had mentioned the interdistrict transfer policy that's already on from public school to public school, and I believe that was voted on or reapproved my second board meeting, and that went through the consent agenda, and I honestly wasn't caught up enough to be able to see that, but that was residency district interdistrict transfers.
Okay.
All right. So with that, we'll take a vote on this. If it votes down, we can separate it.
Yep.
And strike up a motion or two. So all those in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. Okay. So we need a new motion on the floor to either approve these as a pair, separate them individually.
Okay. Chair Wheeler, I move to approve the second reading of OSBA policy LBE.
Individually.
Individually.
So we have that motion?
Second.
And we got a second. Any discussion needed on this? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right. So now we need another motion with regards to LBEA.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the second reading of OSBA policy LBEA, resident student denial for virtual public charter school attendance.
We got that new motion?
Second.
Is that
Rosa?
second?
I'll second.
Rosa got the second. All right. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion?
Yeah, I feel like I need to understand this a little more clearly. So is this saying that if we already have 3% attending an in-district charter school or out-of-district charter school?
All over.
Anywhere?
Anywhere.
Any charter school?
Correct.
But yet they reside in the Estacada School District.
Correct.
And they request to go to a charter school, we will deny them.
It gives us the option of denying.
Option.
So we can approve or deny the request to make that change.
What is our current percentage?
We have, well, I should take this away. We are over 3% currently. 10% of Summit Charter contains our students. And then we have some throughout who live with us throughout or are homeschooled and are a part of something throughout that process. It hasn't impacted us because of our relationship with Summit, and we've been able to keep our kids or grow kids. For Westland Wilsonville, who's lost 1,200 kids during this pandemic, they are adamantly utilizing this policy to stop the bleeding.
And even in the denial, those students can still go to a charter school, is that correct? Or do they have to stay in district?
Technically, I don't believe this is a practice that occurs, but technically, our denial, that charter school would not be allowed to enroll that child in Oregon state law.
How about if they went to Colton High School?
That's different. It's not a virtual charter.
Yep.
That's
Right.
different. Yep.
But if we denied them, they could still attend Colton if Colton accepted them, right?
Technically, our denial does not allow that to go, but we have no apparatus to enforce that or, or police it.
And those are two separate policies, just to
Two
make sure we're on the
completely
same
different
page,
things.
right? So
Correct.
our ability to deny them to go to Colton is a separate policy that LBEA.
That
this
is
one
correct.
is specifically for charter schools.
I was just trying to make that
Yep.
similarity.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would say as Will, and thank you for sharing, and I really appreciate that that's why you're here, is to share your feelings and the feelings of your constituents. And I would say from my perspective in the conversation that I have had with constituents in the community, they would like us to retain the ability to make that decision. And so I think from my perspective and my partnerships within relationships within the community, we don't want to relinquish, or they would not like us to relinquish that. And so what I would mention with that is we still have the opportunity to approve it. We can approve that on a case-by-case basis, which is important because it doesn't mean that we're just locking it down. But it does help us or allows us to retain the ability if we need to in the future.
Yeah. We have never said no.
Yeah,
Right.
if I could add, if it's not approved, then you don't have the option.
Correct.
So that's something for the board to keep in
And
mind.
that's what I was trying to say, so
Yeah.
thank you. It's if we do not approve this, we have no ability to restrict students from leaving our district to go to a charter school,
Correct.
which
this
is different than what we have for non-charter schools, right? So we
Correct.
still have the ability for brick and mortar schools.
Correct.
So this would be aligning charter schools with our current policy for transfers to brick and mortar schools.
Yep.
Thank you, Will, for the clarification.
And just a quick policy generalization, how often do we look at these policies for updates?
These typically come, well, OSBA typically tries to review everything, I believe, within a 4-year span or when law changes. And those are those bulk things that come to us quarterly. And so I don't know, I think this was a change. It was a reactionary change from the state because so many students were going to virtual charter schools during this pandemic, and public school districts were panicking. So they were trying to make some adjustments to regulate that flow a little bit.
Thank you. That helps.
And one quick thing too, just because we don't make it a habit of denying policy very often that OSBA recommends, what are the repercussions other than the obvious ones of that we're kind of going outside the lines of what OSBA says?
Sure. Believe it or not, neither of these are required. If you remember how that goes, these are suggested.
Okay.
And so we wouldn't be going too far outside of the lines. And all OSBA policies are nothing more than really recommendations. It's a service that we pay to have policy written for us. In gigantic districts, they don't go with the OSBA. They have their own lawyers and they have their own policies. And so we're just not big enough to do that.
Okay. All right, so just a reminder here, we got a motion and a second on the floor for approval of LBEA. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
I think you should ask for those who wish to deny.
All those that deny, please raise your right hand. Moving on to item K, which is the professional services agreement between Escada School District and Orchid Oak Ridge Clinic PC. Again, I'll need a motion on this in a second.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the professional services agreement between Estacada School District and Orchid Oak Ridge Clinic PC for fiscal years July 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Director Steiner. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Martinez. Superintendent Carpenter, would you like to dive into this a little bit for us?
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a 100,000-foot level just to keep it brief. But at the end of the day, we've had a very successful partnership with Orchid Health. They've been, of the 3 different medical providers we've had inhabit that building, they have been, without a doubt, the best. They continue to engage the community. They're very popular amongst a lot of our folks who wish to get medical services from them instead of driving into town or the city. And they've been a really good partner, too, to the Estacada School District. They've taken very good care of that building and facility, and they've communicated very well. I've appreciated their partnership, and I guess they're neighbors of our district as well, and so they've been great. I know the one thing that has concerned us in that partnership is their temporary office space. I promised that I represented the board's wishes in what the future of that temporary office space looks like. And they gave us an option, and I appreciate them doing that. We could either let the lease run out, and then it just goes away when the lease is over, or we could pay for the termination of that lease early. And we agreed that just letting the lease run out on its own natural time would be okay, which is the spring of 2022. So we have about a year of that temporary office space still there. But the good news is what they have in that temporary office space is so successful that they're going to begin the processes of adding on and providing more services to our community.
And just to clarify, because we're talking multiple leases here, we're talking about the lease to expire on that temporary facility.
That's correct.
Right? Not our lease with them.
Nothing else.
It's just
That's
on
correct.
that structure. Thank you.
Just the structure.
Which I have to say, if we're gonna bring our own temporary buildings in, I kind of feel a little bit, I mean, if they, I mean, what would be their solution to their lack of space then?
To build on with wood
Okay.
onto the facility.
Yeah, so we'll probably have
Or
this
maybe something
conversation
more
again in the spring,
Yes.
depending upon how building
Yeah.
material costs are
Yes.
and such.
I'm sure that will come back up, and they will probably point at us for our own growth pains and what that looks like. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
We don't have to follow the rules, we just have to make them.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Chair Wheeler was joking.
For the record, for the record.
For the record.
For the record.
I will say too, just in going through the lease, extending it to June of 2024, I know at times can be a little bit of that seems like a long time. But there are provisions in there if we do need to make a change that we can exit that agreement and terminate it with 180 days
Absolutely.
notice. So, so it does still provide us the opportunity to change directions if we feel like we need to for the betterment of the school district.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving this motion, please raise your right arm.
Motion carries.
Oh, boy.
Item L is to approve the Director of Finance contract for the period of April 19th, 2021 through June 30, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the Director of Finance contract for the period of April 19, 2021 through June 30, 2022, as presented.
Thank you, Director Johnson. The motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this?
So after, if this is approved, because this isn't typically an annual contract, right?
It is.
It is an annual contract. Okay, never mind.
Yep. It is. I think what you're also asking, which I think is just a good educational experience as well, is the reason why the board, even though the superintendent is the board's only employee, one and only employee, for financial and legal protection reasons, the Director of Finance is pulled out of any of the groups that are inside of that, obviously for the financial implications of the district and the board's charge with finances. So that's why the board approves the contract.
Cool. Thank you.
separately.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Motion carries.
All right, moving right along. Item M, to approve resolution 2021-1.
Oh, this is a long one. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 2021-1, authorizing the budget increase of general fund to appropriate for the CDL gear grant and to the special revenue funds to appropriate for the ESSER 3 grant, and authorizing the budget transfer in the general fund to accommodate expenditures.
Thank you for that. We have a motion?
Second.
And we have a second.
She motioned, I second. Yep.
Any discussion needed on this? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Motion carries.
Item N, to approve the Escada School District to purchase 2 portables, not to exceed $590,000.
Saved you 10 grand.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the SK School District to purchase 2 portables, 1 office and 1 classroom, not to exceed $590,000.
A second.
I'd like to discuss.
I'll let you go first.
I believe this was originally presented at $600,000 with 1 office and 2 classrooms, or 2 portable units, a total of 4 classrooms.
Yeah.
Can we get a
Yep, we
update
haven't,
on that?
yeah, sure. We haven't lost any net classrooms or net portables. The Oregon City portable that we were hoping for in the workshop last week ended up going to a higher bidder. However, we have a portable on our campus just outside of here, and so we started to ask ourselves the question, instead of the $50,000 for the Oregon City portable, what if we just invested the $50,000 into the current portable that we have? And our maintenance crew says that we can make that work, and we would move the Rufus portable, because that's the only thing I call it, the Rufus portable to Rivermill Elementary School and make those flooring and siding and HVAC upgrades. And so even though you're authorizing the purchase of those 2 scheduled portables, 50 grand of that in the 590 would be for the renovation or improvements of the Rufus portable, which
So-
would get us the 4 classrooms.
And that was my discussion topic too, because the 590 is not just to purchase 2 portables, right?
Correct.
That's to purchase 2, to renovate 1, to site prep, install, all of those things.
Yes.
So I don't know if we need to modify that, or if we can modify the motion, because we're not gonna spend $590,000 to buy 2 portables.
I don't think you need to modify, it's a great question. I don't think you need to modify, you're saying that just right. This is 590, where the district is saying to the board that the whole project is gonna fall inside that scope. But because the purchase of these 2 portables are gonna be around 300,000, like, we're gonna be coming back to you again
Right.
to authorize each and every single thing.
Right.
And so this is just basically saying, here's what we're carving out, not to exceed, and then we'll keep coming to you inside of that carve out to authorize that.
One thing on the supporting document, it still lists 2 portable classrooms.
Say that again?
On the supporting documentation, background information, allocate funds toward the following purchase, 2 portable classrooms and 1 office space.
Yeah.
And then in the body down below, the benefits. So, I don't know if we need to clean that up.
Yeah.
If you're just looking at the board backup, that is not an official document.
Okay. No problem then. All right, if there's no further discussion, all those
Just
in-
one more question. So
Yes.
the Rufus room, I mean, to know that it can be transferred, it has to have some type of other inspection as well. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's been in there a while. I don't know how much water has gotten in there or whatever, but, so So I think I'm in support of this, but I'm just making sure that it could come back differently if we can't actually end up using that building because of an inspection.
Yep, that is true.
Which is why it's a not to exceed.
Correct. Yep.
I do like, though, that we are using an existing building and instead of bringing something new and then removing. So I think that's great.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Next item is to approve the CVE Technology Group price quote to install 110 Merkey 56 access points.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the CVE Technology Group price quote to install 100 Merkey, not install 100, install 100 Merkey 56 access points and 7-year license certificate for each device at the Estacada High School and Estacada Middle School, not to exceed $85,000.
Thanks, Director Johnson, for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Question on this, Rivermill and Clackamas Server, do they already have adequate Wi-Fi and that's why they are not included in this, or do we still have the budgetary means at this point in time?
The latter is the budget. We don't have the money to do the entire school district. So again, a couple things to clarify. The Wi-Fi spots, like the actual Wi-Fi things, that's being paid for out of E-rate. So we get 80% reimbursement for our purchase there. What this ask is for all of the cabling that gets installed from the box through the roof and connect to the mothership of our internet. That's going to provide a better, more quality experience. This $85,000 that you're offering, similar to that, not to exceed the $590,000. It's also probably important to mention that this is coming from ESSER $3. So this is how we're utilizing the federal money to help us open our schools up safely for next year. So all of these purchases is what we're trying to execute from what we built together at the workshop last week.
And secondly, last month, we approved for 174. Is this different than in addition to the 174?
Correct. So the 174 is what you authorize, which is the E-rate funds. That's what gets 80% reimbursed. This is that funding doesn't pay for the installation.
Okay.
So what you're approving, what you could approve, if you choose to approve, is the installation fees, which we're utilizing our ESSER dollars to pay for that, so our general fund doesn't.
Okay, and just to let you know too, is it 100 or 110? Because the numbers are different.
Oh,
Good call.
yeah,
Dr.
the
Schneider.
motion is 110, or that.
How about this? How about we agree to not install more than 110?
There you go.
Well, not to exceed
I didn't want it to, if we need 110, I didn't want it.
There's a lot of NTEs in this one, so.
The backup says 110.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the 110 is gonna be our thing. We probably didn't need that specific in there, but yeah.
Well, I appreciate the clarification too, because I saw the second one come from last month, and I was concerned, so.
It's a great question,
Private
Director Snyder.
investigator.
Thank you.
So do we need to change the motion?
No.
So I have a follow-up question, and this is more of, I know that we're moving into 5 days in person. How does this technology changes when that happens? Because I know that we've done a lot of internet hotspots and that, but how is that going to be impacting our numbers moving forward?
Really great question. So even though we're in school and in person, our school district is still a 1-to-1 Chromebook ratio, and all of our employees run around on laptops. And so what upgrading this system will do will allow more computers and more technology, phones, like every kid has a phone, kids have watches, and everything's connected to these Wi-Fi ports. And so by upgrading this will allow more bandwidth of technology to connect to these things, and everyone has access to the internet while on campus. So it's improving our Wi-Fi range on campus.
Okay.
Does that answer your question though?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even though we're going back to in-person, I think that the one-to-one Chromebooks and stuff,
Yeah.
and the employees,
Yep.
usage of laptops and things like that, I think it's important to upgrade the technology to support those demands.
Yeah, thank you. Our Wi-Fi needs are going to increase, not decrease.
More
Yep.
students.
Yep. Thank you, and thank you for that question. Yep.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Motion carries.
Last item is hearing of citizens for non-action items.
None.
Adjournment at 9 p.m. We are 1 minute ahead of schedule.
Look at that. That is amazing.
Nice job.
Great job, team.
Impressive.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Job.